Chapter 0, Kyther Surrender, by Arthur F. Iceley audiobook version, the epic conclusion of the XHOR Trilogy, image description. A dramatic scene depicting the final confrontation between humanity and the Kyther threat, with spaceships battling against an ominous alien force. Chapter 1, Shattered core. The bridge of the against all odds buzzed with a frenetic energy that made Jana's stomach churn. The vast holographic display at the center of the room flickered with 17 glowing icons, each pulsating like a malignant heart. 17 core worlds under simultaneous attack. Her fingers gripped the cool metal of her command console so tightly that her knuckles blanched. "Reports coming in from Earth Sector," Lieutenant Alara called out, her voice tight with urgency. "Multiple impact sites across major cities. Mars orbital is under heavy assault." Jana's eyes scanned the data streams scrolling across her screen. The sheer scale of the crisis threatened to overwhelm her senses, but she pushed back against the tide of panic. Her mind raced, sorting through the chaos with a precision born of instinct and training. And beneath it all, a faint alien hum resonated in her consciousness, a distant echo from her Queen Link, guiding her thoughts like a spectral compass. Tarek stood rigid beside her, his broad shoulders squared as he barked orders into his comm device, rallying Marines to strategic defense points. His scarred face was a mask of grim determination. Mira hurried onto the bridge, her short black hair disheveled, eyes wide but focused. She tapped frantically at her data pad, syncing with the main display. "Jana, I've run preliminary analyses on the attack vectors," she said breathlessly. "These aren't random swarm movements. The patterns are too precise, too synchronized." Jana's gaze snapped to Mira. "Explain." Mira enlarged a section of the hologram, highlighting lines and nodes that interconnected the attack sites like a neural network. "The timing, the targets, it's almost surgical. And look at these coordinates. They match corporate infrastructure blueprints down to the micrometer." A cold realization settled over Jana. The XHOR swarms were notorious for their chaotic, unpredictable assaults, but this was different. This was orchestrated. "Someone is directing them," Mira concluded, her voice barely above a whisper. Jana felt the Queen's presence more acutely now, a pulsating warmth in her core that seemed to echo Mira's findings. Something was shifting within the swarm, something she had been sensing for weeks. She wasn't entirely human anymore. The alien essence within her whispered secrets and guided her intuition. "Captain Rieck," Tarek growled, his voice low but urgent. "We need a decision. Our defenses are stretched thin as it is." Jana nodded, her mind made up. "Redirect all available units to Earth and Mars. Prioritize civilian evacuation points." She turned to Alara. "Open a secure channel to the Chancellor. Tell him I need immediate access to Federation intelligence databases." Alara's fingers danced over her console. "Channel open, Captain." A moment later, Chancellor Marcus Webb materialized on the comm screen, his silver hair impeccably groomed despite the crisis. His eyes were sharp, calculating. "Captain Rieck," he acknowledged, his voice steady. "I understand you're facing a significant challenge." "Significant?" Jana cut him off, her voice laced with controlled fury. 17 core worlds under attack, Chancellor. This isn't a challenge. It's a war." Webb's expression didn't waver. "Indeed, and the corporations are seizing on this moment to demand action. They claim these attacks prove the border sectors are too unstable and that the Alliance has failed in its mandate." Jana bristled at his words. The implicit threat was clear: submit to Federation control or be branded traitors. But she wouldn't back down, not now, not ever. "With all due respect, Chancellor," she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her, "these attacks are too coordinated to be natural XHOR behavior. Someone inside the Federation planned this." Webb leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Accusations like that require evidence, Captain, and time is of the essence." Jana met his gaze unflinchingly. "I'm aware. That's why I need access to your intelligence databases. If someone within the Federation is behind this, I'll find them." The Chancellor hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Very well, but understand this, Captain. The corporations are already lobbying for drastic measures. They want the border burned and the Alliance disbanded. The real war is just beginning." Jana felt a surge of determination. This was more than just defense. It was about exposing the truth. She would prove the Federation's involvement, no matter the cost. "Understood," she said firmly. "Thank you for the access, Chancellor." Webb's image faded from the screen, leaving Jana with a mix of relief and trepidation. She turned to her command team, their faces etched with a blend of fear and resolve. Mira stepped closer, her voice low. "Jana, if we're going after whoever planned this, we need more than just theories." Jana nodded, trusting Mira's analytical mind as much as Tarek's tactical acumen. She turned to Alara. "Begin data retrieval from the Federation databases. Cross-reference corporate blueprints with attack vectors. I want a list of all known XHOR activity anomalies in the past 6 months." Alara's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded, her fingers flying over the console. Tarek stepped closer, his voice a low rumble. "And what about our defenses? We can't just leave Earth and Mars exposed while we chase shadows." Jana looked at him, her expression resolute. "We won't. But if someone inside the Federation is orchestrating this, hitting back blindly won't solve anything. We need to cut off the head of the snake." Tarek studied her for a moment before nodding grimly. "You're right. But we'll need more than just data. If the corporations are involved, they'll have their own defenses in place." "Exactly," Jana said, feeling the Queen's presence stronger now, guiding her thoughts like an unseen hand. The swarm was changing. She could sense it, feel it in the depths of her being. "Mira, I need you to work on a neural interface, something that can tap into XHOR communication patterns." Mira blinked, taken aback. "That's unprecedented, but if anyone can do it, I can." She paused, then nodded determinedly. "I'll start immediately." Jana placed a hand on Mira's shoulder, gratitude in her touch. Then she turned to Tarek. "We need to move fast. Gather our best tactical teams and get them ready for infiltration missions. If there are corporate facilities involved, we hit them hard and fast." Tarek nodded. "I'll start the preparations right away." As they dispersed, Jana stood alone on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the pulsating hologram. The Queen's presence pulsed within her, a steady rhythm that calmed her nerves but also sharpened her resolve. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. She was no longer just an Alliance officer. She was something more, a hybrid of human and alien, guided by an ancient consciousness. And with this newfound strength came a duty to protect not just the border sectors, but the very heart of humanity. Jana made her decision. They wouldn't just defend, they would strike at the source. She felt the Queen's approval, a soft hum in her mind, a promise that she was on the right path. "Ilara," she called out, her voice steady and clear. "Plot a course for the nearest known corporate research facility. We're going off script." Ilara nodded, her fingers already working at the console. Jana watched as the holographic display shifted, revealing potential targets marked with red icons. She pointed to one, the largest and most heavily fortified. "Set course for that location," she ordered. "We're going after the source." Chapter 2, the secure channel flickered to life on Jana Rieck's console, the holographic projection humming softly as it materialized Vesk's face. His scarred visage was a roadmap of battles fought and won, but his usual gruff demeanor was tempered by an urgency that sent a chill down Jana's spine. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she took in the grim set of his jaw. "Captain Rieck," Vesk began, his voice steady despite the tension radiating from him. "I've got intelligence that can't wait. It's hot and it's volatile." Jana nodded, signaling Tarek to ensure their communications were encrypted and shielded from any potential interception. Mira looked up from her station, her usually bright eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and concern. Vesk continued, his gaze unblinking. "We've intercepted fragments of corporate communications, encrypted, buried deep, but we cracked them open. It's big, Jana." He paused, as if the weight of what he was about to say pressed down on him. "Meridian Industries. They licensed kytheric technology 6 years ago, not just licensed, installed backdoors in civilian infrastructure across every core world." The room went silent. The name Meridian Industries hung heavy in the air, a corporate titan synonymous with power and influence. Jana felt a surge of disbelief, quickly followed by a cold, hard realization. This wasn't some far-fetched conspiracy theory. It was a bomb dropping at her feet. "Backdoors?" Mira repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "For what purpose?" Vesk's expression darkened. To trigger attacks, the coordinated assaults on the border sectors, the XHOR invasions, it wasn't them. It was Meridian Industries pulling strings from the shadows. Jana's mind raced, piecing together fragments of memory. Her brother's deployment to the frontier, the relentless battles against the XHOR, the whispers of Kytheric manipulation. It all coalesced into a horrifying tapestry woven by corporate greed and political malfeasance. Tarek looked up from his console, shock etched on his face. That's treason. Vesk nodded grimly. And it gets worse. They planned to evacuate the core worlds to protected arcologies while the XHOR ravaged the borders. But something went wrong. The attacks escalated out of control. Jana felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. Her brother's sacrifice, the countless lives lost, all for what? To line the pockets of corporate overlords. Who authorized this? Jana asked, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Vesk hesitated before answering. Chancellor Webb. Either he's complicit or a pawn in their game. The name Chancellor Webb echoed through the room like a thunderclap. The Federation's leader, a figure of authority and trust, now tainted by this revelation. Jana's thoughts crystallized into cold determination. This wasn't about rage, it was about action. They needed to expose the truth before the corporations could silence them. We need to leak the evidence, Jana said, her voice firm. But we need more than fragments. We need the full contract documentation from a Meridian corporate hub. Tarek looked at her, uncertainty in his eyes. That's insane, Captain, infiltrating a corporate hub on Titan. It's suicide. Jana met his gaze, unflinching. It's our only move. If we don't act now, more people will die, and this conspiracy will consume what's left of the Federation. Mira stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the metal deck. Her face was flushed with anger. I want in, she said, her voice shaking with barely contained fury. Jana turned to her. Mira, your terraforming station? I know what they did, Mira interjected, her eyes blazing. They destroyed my life's work as part of this scheme. I have every right to be involved. Her righteous anger was a force to be reckoned with, and Jana nodded solemnly. All right. We'll need your expertise on Titan systems. Vesk's hologram flickered slightly, his attention unwavering. I can provide support from the shadows, but you'll need someone inside Meridian Industries who knows the layout and security protocols. Jana thought for a moment before turning to Tarek. Can we reach out to any former employees or disgruntled contractors? Tarek nodded. I have a few contacts who might be willing to help if they know what's at stake. Good, Jana said, her mind racing with the logistics of their plan. We need to move fast. The longer we wait, the more likely it is that Meridian will cover their tracks. Vesk leaned forward, his eyes intense. I'll send over everything I have on Titan's corporate hubs. There's one in particular, the main data vault. It's heavily fortified but worth the risk. Mira paced back and forth, her steps echoing like a ticking clock. We need to be surgical. Infiltrate, extract the documentation, and get out before they lock down the system. Jana agreed, her resolve hardening. Exactly. We can't afford any mistakes. Tarek looked at his console, scrolling through data streams. I'm cross-referencing Meridian's security protocols with known vulnerabilities. There might be a backdoor we can exploit. Vesk nodded approvingly. Smart. Use anything you can find. Every advantage counts. Jana stood up, her decision made. She felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders like armor. All right, everyone knows their roles. Mira, start prepping for Titan's environment. Tarek, work with Vesk to gather intel and exploit any weaknesses in Meridian's defenses. I'll coordinate our infiltration strategy. She turned back to Vesk's hologram. Keep the channel open. We might need real-time support. Vesk saluted, his expression serious but hopeful. Understood, Captain. Good luck out there. The transmission ended, leaving Jana alone with her thoughts for a moment. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Captain, Tarek's voice cut through her thoughts. He held up a data tablet displaying a hollow image of Titan's corporate hub, a towering spire of glass and metal shrouded in perpetual twilight. This is our target. Jana studied the image, committing every detail to memory. The hub was a fortress, but she knew they could breach it. They had to. Mira stepped closer, her voice steady despite the anger still burning in her eyes. We can do this, Jana, for everyone who's been hurt by their greed. Jana nodded, grateful for Mira's support. Yes, we can and we will. The plan crystallized in her mind. Infiltrate Titan's corporate hub, extract the full contract documentation, and expose Meridian Industries to the light of day. It was insane, but it was necessary. They were up against an enemy more terrifying than any alien horde, a shadowy alliance of power and greed that had manipulated worlds for profit. Jana Rieck would not let them win without a fight. "We move out in 24 hours, she announced, her voice echoing through the command center. "Let's show them what happens when they mess with the Federation." The room buzzed with renewed energy as Tarek and Mira sprang into action, their focus sharp and determined. Jana watched them, a sense of pride and resolve swelling within her. This was bigger than any single battle. It was a war for truth and justice, and Captain Jana Rieck would lead the charge. Chapter 3. Shattered Alliance. The bridge of the Infinity's edge was a hive of controlled chaos. The hum of activity punctuated by the sharp beeps of incoming communications and the steady drone of tactical displays. At the center of it all, Captain Jana Rieck stood tall and resolute, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. The image flickered to life, displaying a cascade of news feeds from across the Federation. Every channel blazed with the same headline: "Leaked evidence implicates high-ranking officials in corporate conspiracy." Jana watched as holographic reporters materialized before static backdrop studios, their voices urgent and eyes wide with shock. "Corporate collusion," they cried. "Federation leaders implicated. Alliance claims vindicated." The words washed over her like a torrent, each one carving deeper into the chasm between her and the Federation she once served. "The Federation Council is in uproar," Mira reported from her station, fingers dancing over hollow controls as she sifted through incoming data. "Calls for investigations, resignations, it's pure pandemonium." Tarek leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his broad chest. "Webb won't take this lying down. He's got too much to lose." As if summoned by Tarek's words, Chancellor Webb's stern visage filled the view screen. His expression was a thundercloud, eyes hard and accusing. "Citizens of the Federation," he began, voice grave and authoritative, "I speak to you today in the face of an unprecedented crisis. The evidence circulating is a fabrication, part of a calculated smear campaign orchestrated by rogue elements within our midst." Jana's grip tightened on the rail before her, knuckles white. "Captain Jana Rieck of the Infinity's Edge," Webb continued, his gaze seeming to bore straight through the view screen and into Jana's soul, "has been identified as the mastermind behind this treachery. She and her so-called alliance have sought to undermine the Federation from within, playing on fears and prejudices for personal gain." Tarek snarled, "Personal gain? He's the one lining his pockets with corporate credits." Mira looked up from her console, worry etched on her face. "Jana, he's invoking emergency powers. Orders are going out across the Federation. He's calling for your arrest and the dismantling of the Alliance." Jana's response was calm, measured. "Let him try." Her voice carried the weight of conviction, unshaken by the storm brewing around her. Vesk materialized beside her, holographic form flickering slightly as he integrated with the bridge systems. "Captain Chancellor Webb is mobilizing his forces. Several fleet commands have acknowledged his orders." "And those that haven't?" Jana asked, gaze never leaving Webb's tirade on the screen. "A handful," Vesk replied. "But significant, they're holding position, awaiting further instructions. Your name, Jana, has become a rallying cry." Webb's diatribe reached its climax. "To all Federation vessels, apprehend Captain Rieck and her command staff immediately. They are to be considered dangerous fugitives until proven otherwise. This is not a request. It is an order under martial law." The view screen cut back to the news feeds, analysts already dissecting Webb's statement with fervor. Jana turned to face her crew, resolve unbroken. "We do not retreat," she declared. "We stand our ground and fight for what we know is right." Tarek nodded grimly. "We're ready when you are, Captain." Mira straightened in her seat, eyes reflecting the dance of data across her console. "The Border Council is convening an emergency session. They're requesting your presence, Jana." Before Jana could respond, a new holographic figure materialized. A middle-aged woman with steely gray hair and piercing blue eyes, Counselor Yeva. Her image flickered into focus, standing tall despite the virtual medium. Captain Rieck, she began without preamble, the Border Sector Council acknowledges your actions and accepts the legitimacy of the alliance. We formally request that you lead an emergency defense coalition. Jana felt a surge of determination. This was more than just defiance. It was a mandate. She nodded solemnly. I accept, Counselor Yeva. The alliance will stand with the border sectors. Yeva's expression softened slightly. Then we have much to discuss. But first, Jana, be cautious. Webb won't hesitate to strike at you through any means necessary. As Yeva's hologram dissolved, Vesk stepped closer to Jana. His voice was low, meant for her ears only. Captain, intelligence reports from the Deep Network are confirming what we feared. The Kyther have initiated their endgame. Jana's breath hitched slightly, but she kept her composure. Explain. Subspace relays across the border sectors are being systematically isolated, Vesk said. The Federation network is being cut off, sector by sector. And it's not just isolation. They're redirecting XHOR nests toward core worlds, all of them. A cold knot formed in Jana's stomach. She looked out at her crew, seeing their reflections in the bridge's polished surfaces, mirror images of resolve and fear. The corporate conspiracy, she murmured almost to herself. It was a pawn move. The Kyther let them think they were using us, but all along, we were just pieces on their board. Tarek looked up from his console, brows furrowed. You mean they manipulated everything from the start? Exactly, Jana confirmed. Her mind raced with the implications. The corporations weren't pulling strings, they were puppets. The real enemy has been hiding in plain sight, pulling both sides of this conflict like a grandmaster at a chessboard. Mira turned from her station, eyes wide with realization. So what do we do? How do we fight something we can't even see? Jana took a deep breath, the weight of command settling heavier on her shoulders. We adapt. We've been playing defense for too long, defending the border, defending our people. But this changes everything. She stepped to the center of the bridge, addressing her crew with renewed purpose. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, we're fighting to end the Kyther threat permanently. No more holding actions, no more reactive strategies. We go on the offensive. Tarek leaned forward in his chair, eagerness in his eyes. What's the plan, Captain? Jana began pacing slowly, thoughts coalescing into a strategy. 3 prongs of attack. First, she said, ticking off points on her fingers, we bolster our defenses across the border sectors. Every resource we have goes into fortifying key positions and securing supply lines. Mira nodded, already inputting data into her console. Understood, I'll coordinate with the Council to prioritize assets. Second, Jana continued, we launch a series of surgical strikes against known XHOR nests, hit them hard and fast before they can regroup. Cut off the Kyther's ground forces. Tarek grinned wolfishly. Sounds like fun. I'll rally the fleet commanders, get our ships battle-ready. Lastly, Jana concluded, her voice steady despite the storm inside her, we infiltrate the Kyther network itself. Find their command hubs, their control points. If we can disrupt their communications, sever their ability to coordinate attacks. Vesk completed her thought. We blind them. Make them vulnerable. Jana met each of her crew's gazes in turn, seeing the mixture of determination and trepidation reflected back at her. This won't be easy, she warned. But we have something the Kyther don't. We have unity. We fight for each other, for our homes, and for a future free from their manipulation. Mira looked up from her console, determination etched on her face. And we have Yeva's support. The Border Council gives us political backing. The Federation might turn against us, but the border sectors stand with you, Jana. Jana felt a surge of gratitude mixed with responsibility. Counselor Yeva's endorsement was more than just political cover. It was the backbone that allowed her to act militarily. With this alliance solidified, she could focus on the true threat. Then let's move out, Jana ordered, voice ringing through the bridge. We have a war to win. As the crew sprang into action, Jana took one last look at the view screen, now displaying tactical overlays and strategic maps instead of news feeds. The Federation might be fractured, but here on the infinity's edge, they were united. And together, they would turn the tide against an ancient foe hidden in shadows. The battle for the Federation's future had begun anew. But this time, Jana Rieck was not just defending her people. She was striking at the heart of darkness that sought to consume them all. Chapter 4. The counter-resonance suite. The laboratory hummed with an electric energy that was almost palpable. Tubes filled with shimmering liquids pulsed in rhythm with unseen currents, while holographic displays flickered with data streams too complex for the untrained eye to decipher. Mira moved through the chaos with a dancer's grace, her fingers tracing patterns on consoles that bristled with controls both alien and familiar. Alien specimens, flasked in glass enclosures, glowed softly under dim lights. Human technology intermingled with Kyther relics, creating an ecosystem where science and sorcery blurred into one cohesive whole. Mira's workspace was a testament to her brilliance, each piece of equipment strategically placed within arm's reach, yet seemingly out of order to anyone else. Mira paused at a large central table where a holographic model of the galaxy floated above it. She adjusted the projections with swift, precise gestures, zooming in on 3 distant stargates marked in glowing blue. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the coordinates, her mind already racing through the calculations required to synchronize their activation. A chime echoed through the lab, signaling that the Alliance Command Council was ready for her presentation. Mira took a deep breath, smoothed her uniform, and stepped into the holographic interface that would beam her image directly to the council chamber. The room materialized around her. Stark white walls adorned with screens displaying real-time data feeds from across the galaxy. Captain Jana Rieck sat at the head of the table, her gaze steady and unreadable. Beside her was Vesk, his Teldar features etched with an ancient wisdom that seemed out of place amidst the modern technology. Mira felt a familiar flutter of nerves but pushed it aside. This was her moment to share something that could turn the tide of the Kytheric wars. "Greetings, council members," Mira began, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "Today, I present to you the counter-resonance suite, a technology designed to exploit a fundamental aspect of Kyther physics." She gestured to the hologram behind her, where the galaxy spun slowly. As we know, the Kyther use subspace for their relay communications, leveraging resonance frequencies between subspace and normal space. This suite is built on that principle. Mira stepped closer to the holographic model, her fingers dancing through the air as she manipulated the display. The counter-resonance suite can perform 2 critical functions simultaneously: stabilize subspace channels and mirror Kytheric control packets. She pointed to a pulsating node in the model. By stabilizing these channels, we prevent the Kyther from isolating sectors and redirecting their XHOR units at will. She moved her hands apart, and the hologram split into 2 distinct views, a grid of subspace channels and a stream of data packets racing through them. Mirroring Kytheric control, packets effectively hijacks XHOR units from Kyther command. The challenge lies in synchronization and power requirements. Her fingers traced lines connecting 3 distant stargates. These points, thousands of light-years apart, must be activated simultaneously to create an interference pattern that propagates across the entire Kyther network. Jana leaned forward, her eyes never leaving the hologram. "Explain the synchronization requirement," she said, her voice a low rumble. Mira nodded. "To achieve galaxy-wide effect, we need 3 stargates firing in unison. The interference pattern generated will disrupt the Kyther's control over their units, allowing us to take command." She gestured to a series of equations floating beside the hologram. Each stargate must be calibrated precisely to match the resonance frequency of subspace. Any deviation, no matter how small, could cause catastrophic failure. Vesk interjected, his voice deep and measured. "This technology represents an unprecedented advancement in our Kytheric wars. If successful, it would be a game-changer." He looked at Jana, then back at Mira. "But the risk is enormous. Failure means every XHOR unit in the galaxy could be redirected toward Alliance positions simultaneously." Mira felt a chill run down her spine, but held Vesk's gaze steadfastly. "The risk is significant," she acknowledged. "However, the potential payoff is worth it. With control over the XHOR units, we can turn the tide of the war." Jana leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "Mira, you're proposing a bold move, but I see the strategic potential immediately." She turned to Vesk. "What's your assessment?" Vesk's gaze drifted to the hologram before returning to Jana. "The Teldar have studied Kyther physics for millennia. This counter-resonance suite aligns with our ancient knowledge. It is a logical extension of what we've learned, not some magical solution. He paused. But it requires precise execution and immense power, a risk worth taking if the alternative is annihilation. Jana nodded slowly, her eyes returning to Mira. You've given us much to consider. I trust your plan because you wouldn't propose something you didn't believe in, but let's walk through the tactical requirements. She stood up and began pacing around the room. We need a coordinated strike team for each Stargate location. Each team must be equipped with the counter-resonance suite, and their activation must be synchronized to the nanosecond. Mira felt a surge of gratitude mixed with relief. Jana's immediate acceptance bolstered her confidence. The synchronization protocol will be embedded in the suite's software, she explained. Each device will have a fail-safe mechanism to ensure it triggers only when all three are ready. Vesk added, we must also consider backup plans. If one Stargate fails, we need contingency measures to prevent a cascading failure across the network. He looked at Jana. This will require unprecedented cooperation between our forces and the Teldar. Jana nodded. I'll coordinate with fleet commanders to assemble the teams. Vesk, your expertise in ancient Teldar technology will be invaluable in refining the suite's synchronization algorithms. She turned back to Mira. Your role will be critical during deployment. You must oversee the final calibrations and ensure the Stargates are activated precisely. Mira took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. I understand the stakes, Captain. I won't let you down. The council chamber fell silent for a moment as each member absorbed the gravity of their decision. Then Jana spoke, her voice firm and resolute. We're going to attempt the synchronization. We have no other choice but to take this gamble. Vesk nodded in agreement. It is a bold move, but one that could secure our future. Mira watched as Jana walked over to her side of the hologram table and leaned closer. Why do you trust my plan so completely? She asked softly. Jana met her gaze with an intensity that took Mira by surprise. Because it's your plan, Jana said, her voice gentle but unyielding. And you wouldn't propose something you didn't believe in. She straightened up and looked around at the council members who nodded solemnly in agreement. Let's make this happen. Mira felt a lump form in her throat as she watched Captain Rieck and Vesk begin to outline their next steps. This wasn't just about a technological breakthrough. It was about hope, trust, and the unyielding belief that sometimes the greatest risks lead to the most profound victories. As the council began to disperse, Mira found herself standing alone in her holographic lab, the galaxy spinning slowly before her. She touched the hologram gently, tracing lines between the three Stargates. The task ahead was monumental, but she felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about science. It was about forging a new path forward for all Alliance forces and their allies. With a final glance at the holographic model, Mira stepped out of the interface, returning to her laboratory where chaos reigned once more. But now, amidst the clutter of tubes and consoles, there was a sense of purpose, a beacon guiding them through the darkest hours of war toward a brighter dawn. Chapter 5. The three-pronged strike the briefing room hummed with a tense energy as Captain Jana Rieck stood before the holographic displays, her reflection stark against the swirling images of star systems and military icons. Her senior staff, Tarek, Mira, Vesk, and several tactical officers, formed a semicircle around her, their eyes fixed on the three pulsating target zones projected above the table. Ladies and gentlemen, Jana began, her voice steady and authoritative, we are at a critical juncture. The fate of multiple star systems hangs in the balance, and our operation will determine whether we can turn the tide against Meridian Industries and the XHOR swarms. Today, I present to you Operation Kyther Surrender, a three-pronged assault designed to cripple our enemy's defenses and secure political leverage. The holographic displays zoomed in on three distinct areas. A gleaming corporate tower nestled within the icy landscape of Titan, an orbital relay station circling the turbulent atmosphere of Valdris-9, and a sprawling cluster of stargates scattered across neutral space. Each target glowed with an ominous red hue, marking them as high-priority objectives. Objective 1, Jana continued, tapping the holographic icon near Titan. Tarek will lead a covert strike team to infiltrate Meridian Industries' corporate data hub. The goal? Extract the full Kytheric licensing contracts. These documents are our political proof, evidence of Meridian's illicit dealings that we can use to turn public opinion against them. Tarek nodded grimly, his eyes locked on the Titan icon. I'll need the best infiltration specialists, he said. This is deep behind enemy lines, but I volunteer for it. The risk is high, but so is the potential reward. Jana acknowledged him with a nod before moving to the second objective. Objective 2, I will personally lead the assault on the Kytheric relay station orbiting Valdris-9. Our task is to disable it permanently. This means direct combat against Kyther defenses, a formidable challenge, but critical for disrupting their communications and strategic coordination. The holographic display shifted to show a dense network of stargates in neutral space. Jana's gaze hardened as she addressed the third objective. Objective 3. Vesk will command a fleet of Teldar-cloaked vessels deploying false Queen pheromone signatures across 7 systems. The aim is to draw XHOR swarms away from our gate synchronization zones, buying us the time we need. Vesk stepped forward, his voice firm but measured. My crew knows no other way than deception and stealth. I'll lead this operation myself. It's the most fragile of the 3, relying entirely on the effectiveness of our pheromone lures. Mira, Jana's chief strategist, interjected. The synchronization requires precise timing across 3 star systems. Each gate must activate within a 90-second window. The margin for error is 0. This is where things get complicated. Jana nodded. Indeed, Mira, we're dealing with 3 separate operations that must converge at an exact moment in time. The complexity is overwhelming, but we can break it down into manageable parts. She turned to the holographic display and expanded a timeline across the room. First, Tarek's team will initiate their infiltration 45 minutes before the synchronization window. This gives them ample time to navigate security protocols and extract the data. Simultaneously, Vesk's fleet will deploy their pheromone signatures, beginning the draw of XHOR swarms away from our targets. I'll lead my assault on Valdris-9 exactly 30 minutes before the window opens, ensuring we have enough time to disable the relay station. The tactical officers murmured in agreement, scribbling notes and adjusting their data pads. Tarek spoke up. What about backup plans, if any part of this goes wrong? Jana cut him off with a reassuring gesture. Excellent question, Tarek. Each team will have contingency protocols in place. But remember, our success hinges on synchronization. If one gate fails to activate within the 90-second window, we lose our chance. Vesk nodded, his expression resolute. We'll need constant communication and real-time updates. Even a minor glitch could throw off the timing. Mira stepped closer to the holographic display. I've run multiple simulations. The key is coordination, ensuring that each team's actions support the others. We can't afford missteps or delays. Jana scanned her staff, ensuring every eye was on her before continuing. This operation will test our limits, but we must remember what's at stake, not just victory in a battle, but potentially altering the course of this war. The lives of countless civilians and soldiers depend on our success. The room fell silent as Jana concluded her briefing. She dismissed the tactical officers, leaving only Tarek, Mira, Vesk, and herself. Before we adjourn, Jana began, her tone softening but no less intense, I need to speak to each of you personally. She looked at Tarek first. You're taking on a politically sensitive mission deep behind enemy lines. Your team's stealth and precision will be crucial. Tarek met her gaze with unwavering determination. We won't let you down, Captain. Jana turned to Vesk next. Your fleet operation is the most fragile. One misstep could expose your vessels to the XHOR swarms or alert Meridian defenses. Trust in your crew's expertise, but be prepared for anything. Vesk nodded solemnly. We'll be ready. Finally, Jana addressed Mira. As our chief strategist, you're the backbone of this operation. Your calculations and real-time adjustments will keep us on track. Don't hesitate to intervene if something goes wrong. Mira offered a confident smile. I won't let you down. Jana took a deep breath before continuing. And now, one last thing. If any one of us fails, If Tarek's team is compromised, if Vesk's pheromones fail to lure the XHOR, or if my assault on Valdris-9 hits a snag, you keep going. This isn't about any one of us. It's about all of us succeeding together. Tarek leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. What do you mean? Jana looked at each of them in turn. Our plan is synchronized to within seconds. If something goes wrong with your part, it could jeopardize the others. But if we're prepared, we can adapt. No single failure should halt the entire operation. Vesk frowned. But how do we? Mira will coordinate with each of us, Jana interrupted. She'll monitor all three operations in real time and adjust as needed. If one objective is compromised, she'll signal the others to proceed without delay. Tarek nodded slowly. That means we need fail-safe triggers, prearranged signals for when to cut our losses and move on. Precisely, Jana agreed. We can't afford to dwell on setbacks. Each team must be ready to adapt, to improvise if necessary. Our success depends not just on individual efforts, but on our collective ability to pivot when faced with the unexpected. Mira added, I'll develop a communication protocol that ensures we stay in sync even as conditions change. We'll have redundancy built into every layer of this operation. The room was quiet for a moment before Vesk spoke. This is uncharted territory for us all, but if anyone can pull it off, it's you, Jana. You've proven time and again that we're more than capable when we work together. Jana smiled softly. We have no choice but to succeed, she said, for the sake of our people, our allies, and everyone caught in the crossfire. Tarek stood up first. I'll get my team ready, he said, determination etched on his face. Vesk followed suit. My crew will be prepared to execute their part flawlessly. Mira gave Jana a nod. I'll finalize the communication protocols and ensure every detail is accounted for. As they filed out of the room, Jana watched them go, feeling a mix of pride and trepidation. The weight of the operation rested heavily on her shoulders, but she knew her team was ready. They had trained for this moment, prepared for every contingency they could imagine. Jana took one last look at the holographic displays before dismissing them, leaving the room in silence. She stood alone for a moment, collecting her thoughts and steeling herself for what lay ahead. This wasn't just an operation. It was a test of their resolve, their unity, and their ability to turn the tide against insurmountable odds. As she stepped out of the briefing room, Jana felt a surge of determination. They had planned meticulously, prepared for every eventuality, and now it was time to execute. The fate of countless lives hung in the balance, but with her team by her side, Jana knew they could face any challenge. Operation Kyther Surrender was underway, and there was no turning back. With a final glance at the empty room, Jana turned and walked out, ready to lead her crew into the crucible of battle. 3 objectives converging in perfect synchronization, or failure on a scale they dared not imagine. Chapter 6. Ghosts in the machine. The dimly lit chamber hummed with a quiet intensity, the air thick with the scent of ozone and polished metal. Tarek stood at the center of his team's makeshift briefing room, a cramped space tucked away in the labyrinthine underbelly of an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of Meridian City. The walls were bare except for a few hollow screens displaying schematics of Titan's corporate fortress, its sprawling campus disguised as a tech haven but bristling with defenses. His team moved around him like silent shadows. 8 seasoned operatives, each a veteran of the XHOR campaigns, their faces etched with the scars of battle and the weight of too many missions. Tarek's fingers danced over the controls on his tactical vest, double-checking the seals on his armor-plated exosuit. The suit's matte black finish absorbed what little light filtered into the room, making him almost invisible in the shadows. He glanced at each of his team members, Lyra checking her rifle with methodical precision, Vex adjusting his combat harness, Kaya calibrating her hacking tools, and the rest all focused and ready. In stark contrast to Tarek's grim preparation, Jana Rieck's voice came through his calm and collected. Tarek, we've got a green light on orbital scans. No unusual activity detected around Meridian's perimeter. You're clear for insertion. Copy that, Tarek replied, his voice steady despite the knot tightening in his stomach. Jana was thousands of kilometers away, aboard the again. Her command bridge bathed in soft blue light from multiple holoscreens displaying real-time feeds and tactical overlays. She leaned back in her chair, her eyes scanning the data streams as she coordinated with Tarek's team. Her voice was a lifeline, guiding them through the labyrinth of corporate deceit. Tarek gave his team a final nod before they began their descent into the maintenance shaft. The drop was controlled chaos, each step calculated to avoid detection. They moved like ghosts through the dimly lit corridors, blending seamlessly with the occasional janitorial staff and low-level technicians. Their fake credentials held up under scrutiny from automated checkpoints, but Tarek knew one wrong move could set off alarms. The memorial wall hit them like a punch to the gut. Hidden behind a nondescript door in a seemingly innocuous wing of the complex, it was a stark reminder of the corporation's darker side. Photos and names etched into polished obsidian panels, employees lost in the border expansion program. Tarek's eyes narrowed as he scanned the faces, his fury simmering just beneath the surface. He'd seen the aftermath of kytheric experiments firsthand during the XHOR campaigns. This was personal. "Tarek," Jana's voice cut through the calm, "you need to move on. We're running out of time." He nodded silently, tearing himself away from the wall and signaling his team forward. The central data vault loomed ahead, a fortified chamber at the heart of Meridian's defenses. The alarms triggered with a suddenness that made Tarek's pulse spike. Red lights pulsed through the corridors, casting eerie shadows as emergency protocols activated. Voices crackled over the comm, Jana's calm tone juxtaposed against the chaos erupting around them. "Meridian security forces are mobilizing. You've been compromised." "Copy," Tarek barked, his mind racing. He could feel the weight of his team's eyes on him, trust and loyalty burning like a beacon in the storm. Corporate mercenaries poured into the corridors, their armor glinting under the harsh emergency lighting. They were well-equipped, professional soldiers paid to die for Meridian's secrets. Tarek's team fought with the ferocity of cornered animals, but every skirmish chipped away at their numbers. "Lyra down!" Vesk shouted over the comm, his voice raw with panic. Tarek's heart pounded as he pushed forward, leaving a trail of stunned mercenaries in his wake. Kyther was by his side, her fingers dancing over her hacking tools as she tried to keep the security systems at bay. The data vault loomed before them, its doors sealed tight against intruders. "Jana," Tarek growled into the comm, "I need access." Her voice was steady, precise. "Left wall panel 3 meters from the door. Override sequence 17 Alpha Tango minus 432. You've got 30 seconds before it locks down again." Tarek's hands flew over the keypad, inputting the code with practiced ease. The vault doors hissed open just as mercenaries rounded the corner behind them. Inside, the data core pulsed with raw power, a labyrinth of servers and quantum processors. Tarek moved with surgical precision, jacking into the mainframe and initiating data extraction protocols. 10 minutes, Jana's voice echoed in his ear. Tarek's heart raced as he worked, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air of the vault. His team fought outside, their gunshots and shouts a grim symphony. Minutes ticked by like hours. Tarek felt every second grind against him, each one a countdown to disaster. Finally, with a hiss, the extraction complete, he ripped out the data drive and turned back towards the door. "They're in," Kyther's voice crackled over the comm. "We can't hold them." Tarek's chest tightened as he stepped out into chaos. Meridian mercenaries swarmed around his team, their numbers dwindling with each passing moment. He spotted Lyra on the ground, her leg a mess of blood and twisted metal. Vesk stood over her, firing at incoming threats. "Vesk," Tarek shouted, but it was drowned out by gunfire. "We need to move," but they couldn't move fast enough. Vesk turned to him, eyes wide with desperation. "Leave me," he pleaded, covering Lyra's body with his own. Tarek hesitated, the weight of their mission crushing down on him. He knew what had to be done. He'd made impossible choices before, but this time it felt like a knife twisting in his gut. "No," Kyther screamed as Tarek grabbed her arm and pulled her away from the fight. "We can't leave them." But Tarek's resolve didn't waver. He knew the cost of failure. He'd seen entire colonies burn because of corporate greed. The data was worth it, but the personal toll left a bitter taste in his mouth. "Move," he barked, pushing Kyther forward and covering their retreat with bursts from his rifle. They fled through the corridors, leaving behind the carnage of their mission. Tarek's heart pounded as they reached the maintenance shaft, climbing up towards safety with grim determination. Jana's voice guided them every step of the way, her calm presence a lifeline in the storm. Finally, they surfaced into the relative safety of the abandoned industrial complex. Exhaustion and grief weighed heavily on Tarek's shoulders as he activated their extraction beacon. The shuttle descended from above like an angel of mercy, its engines roaring to life. Back aboard the again, Tarek stood in the command bridge, staring at the data drive clutched tightly in his hand. Jana approached him with a gentle step, her eyes reflecting both relief and concern. "You made it," she said softly, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. Tarek nodded, but the weight of his decision hung heavy over him. "Jana!" His voice caught, raw emotion threatening to break through. She looked at him with understanding. "You did what you had to do. It was the right call." He wanted to believe her, needed to believe it, but the ghostly faces on that memorial wall haunted his vision. "I left them behind," he whispered. Jana's grip tightened on his arm. "And you saved countless lives by getting this data. Your team knew the risks. They trusted you. You made the right call." Tarek took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He knew she was right, but the knowledge didn't ease the pain. The weight of abandonment pressed down on him like a stone. "Let's see what Meridian was hiding," Jana said, nodding towards the data drive. With a heavy heart, Tarek inserted the drive into the console. The room filled with streams of data, charts, and images, evidence of Meridian's complicity in the Kytheric breeding programs and more. It was a trove of corporate evil laid bare, but it felt hollow compared to the cost. As Jana began poring over the information, Tarek stood silently, carrying the burden of his choice. He knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but he also knew that every step they took brought them closer to exposing Meridian's dark secrets. For now, though, there was only the weight of sacrifice and the echo of gunshots in his mind, a reminder that sometimes victory came at a price too high to measure. Chapter 7. The frozen behemoth, the ice giant Valdris-9, loomed before the again like a frozen leviathan, its swirling blue and white bands a stark contrast against the void of space. Captain Jana Rieck stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the colossal world through the main viewport. The Kytheric relay station orbited within the planet's frigid atmosphere, a monstrous alien structure that seemed to defy physics with its twisting spires and humming energy fields. Defensive platforms bristled around it like a metallic crown, glinting menacingly in the distant sunlight. Jana's voice cut through the bridge's controlled chaos, calm and authoritative. "All hands, battle stations. Helm, bring us to optimal engagement range. Tactical, coordinate with the escorts for simultaneous assault on the defensive platforms." The bridge crew snapped into action, their fingers dancing over consoles as they relayed commands to the rest of Jana's task force. 2 Alliance carriers, a dozen escorts, and 300 Marines poised for boarding action. Jana felt the familiar hum of her Queen Link, the alien consciousness pulsing gently at the edge of her awareness. It was both an advantage and a burden, this connection to the Kyther, but she embraced it, using it to anticipate the enemy's moves. "Captain," Vesk, her tactical officer, called out, "the relay is powering up its defenses. Energy readings are off the charts." Jana nodded, her eyes never leaving the viewport. "Expected. Keep an eye on those fluctuations. We need to know when they're about to fire." The first volley of plasma torpedoes streaked from the Alliance fleet, arcing toward the defensive platforms. The Kyther defenses responded instantly, a barrage of energy bolts lashing out like whip cracks. Explosions bloomed in space, but Jana's escorts held formation, pressing forward with grim determination. "Marines ready for deployment," Mira announced over the comm, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Awaiting your order, Captain." Jana glanced at Vesk, who gave a sharp nod. "Deploy Marines," Jana commanded. "Target the primary platforms first. We need those out of action before we can approach the relay." The again shuddered as the first wave of Marines launched from its bay, their dropships diving toward the churning atmosphere of Valdris-9. Jana could feel their resolve through her Queen Link, a blend of fear and determination that mirrored her own emotions. Tarek's voice crackled over her private comm channel, cutting through the battle noise. Jana, we've got the data, but we lost someone. Her heart clenched, but she didn't allow the grief to surface fully. There was no time for that now. Who? She asked, her voice barely audible. Lyra, Tarek said, his voice heavy with sorrow. She went down trying to protect the extraction site. Jana's vision blurred momentarily as Lyra's face flashed through her mind, young, eager, full of life. She took a deep breath, pushing the emotion into a locked compartment within herself. There would be time for grief later. Now she needed to focus. Understood, Jana replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Get back to safety. I'll see you when this is over. She severed the connection and turned back to the battle unfolding on the viewport. The Marines were engaging the platforms, their fighters swarming like angry bees around the Kyther defenses. But the relay's firepower was immense. Jana watched as several dropships were vaporized before they could land. Casualty report? She demanded. Vesk's fingers flew over his console. Heavy losses among the Marines. The kytheric shields are stronger than anticipated. Jana's grip on her command chair tightened. She reached out with her Queen Link, feeling the relay's systems humming like a living thing. It was different from anything she'd encountered before, the alien consciousness almost tangible in its complexity. You're going to have to go beyond what you know, she murmured under her breath, not sure if it was a command or a plea. The bridge crew exchanged glances but said nothing. Jana closed her eyes briefly, letting the alien awareness guide her. She could feel the patterns of the relay's defenses, almost predict their movements. It was like dancing with a partner who moved in perfect sync with you, dangerous and exhilarating all at once. Captain, Mira interrupted over the comm. The synchronization window is narrowing. We need that relay operational for calibration within 6 hours. Jana's eyes snapped open. The choice crystallized in her mind. Destroy the relay as ordered or capture it intact. The plan hinged on its operation. Destroying it now would mean the entire mission failed. Captain, Vesk prompted, sensing her internal struggle. I need a status update, Jana demanded, pushing down her emotions. How many platforms remain active? Vesk consulted his screen. 3 out of 12. Jana made her decision. All available forces to converge on those 3 platforms. We take them down now. She turned to Mira's comm channel. Mira, we're capturing the relay intact. I need all non-essential personnel focused on stabilizing it once we breach. The bridge hummed with renewed energy as commands were relayed. The against weapon systems pounded the remaining platforms relentlessly, while escorts provided cover for the Marines still engaged in boarding actions. Jana felt a surge of pride mixed with dread, pride in her team's resilience and dread of what lay ahead. She watched as the last platform fell under a barrage of torpedoes and Marine assaults, their shuttles swarming toward the relay like locusts. Marines to the relay, Jana ordered. Secure it at all costs. The Marines moved with precision, breaching the relay's outer hull despite its desperate countermeasures. The battle raged on inside as well, a storm of energy bolts and close-quarters combat. Jana could feel their pain, their fear, but also their unwavering determination. Captain, Vesk called out, we're getting a transmission from the relay. Jana's brow furrowed. Put it through. A harsh, alien voice filled the bridge, its language indecipherable but laced with fury and defiance. Jana let her Queen Link process it, translating the essence of the message. They won't surrender, she said softly. They're fighting to the end. Orders? Vesk asked. Jana looked back at the viewport, where the relay's twisted spires glinted ominously against the frozen backdrop of Valdris -9. Push forward. We need that core intact. The minutes ticked by like hours as Marines fought their way deeper into the relay. Jana could feel their progress through her link, each breach, each loss, each victory echoing in her mind. Finally, Vesk turned to her with a grimace. Captain, they're at the core, but it's heavily fortified. Jana stood and straightened her uniform, steeling herself for what lay ahead. I'm going down there, she announced. The bridge fell silent as all eyes turned to her. She met their gazes one by one before stepping off the command platform. Vesk, you have the bridge, Jana said. Keep us in position. As she strode toward the turbolift, a weight settled over her shoulders, the weight of command and the lives under her care. But there was another weight, too, one of grief for Lyra and all those who had fallen. The turbolift whisked her down to the launch bay where shuttles were prepped for boarding actions. Jana boarded one, her heart pounding with anticipation and dread. She took a moment before strapping in, letting the Queen Link guide her through the chaos of battle still raging outside. "Lyra," she whispered into the silence, "I promise you we'll finish this." The shuttle launched, piercing through the hull breach created by the Marines. Jana stepped onto the relay's deck, her boots sinking slightly into the alien metal. Marines surrounded her, their weapons at the ready, faces grim but determined. They moved swiftly through corridors lit by pulsating lights, the air thick with the hum of energy and the stench of ozone. The core lay ahead, a vast chamber filled with towering pillars emitting a blinding light. At its center stood an orb, pulsing with raw power, the kytheric heart of the relay. Jana approached cautiously, her Queen Link resonating with the orb's rhythm. She could feel its defenses, layers upon layers of energy fields designed to repel intruders. But she also felt a strange harmony, as if it recognized something in her. "Stand back," Jana ordered softly. She reached out mentally, her link merging seamlessly with the relay's consciousness. It was like diving into an ocean of alien thoughts and memories, chaotic yet coherent. She navigated through its defenses, finding the patterns she needed to unlock its core without destroying it. The Marines watched in awe as Jana stood motionless, her eyes closed, hands raised slightly as if conducting an invisible orchestra. The orb's pulsing slowed, then stabilized, its energy fields receding like waves pulling back from shore. Jana opened her eyes, relief flooding through her. "We've got control," she announced. Cheers erupted among the Marines, but Jana remained focused on the task at hand. She turned to one of the soldiers nearby, a young woman with a determined gaze. "Get this data back to Mira immediately," she instructed, handing over a small device containing the relay's calibration settings. As the soldier hurried away, Jana allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection amidst the chaos. She thought of Lyra and all those who had given their lives for this mission. A promise echoed in her mind, one she intended to keep when this was over. Minutes ticked by agonizingly slow as the data flowed back to Mira's team. Then came the confirmation, synchronization complete, calibration successful. The relay hummed with new purpose, its defenses now under Jana's command. Jana let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had done it. The relay was theirs. Now the real challenge began, using this alien technology to synchronize their own systems and turn the tide of war against the Kyther. But for now, there was a private moment of grief to honor those who made this victory possible. Jana stood alone in the core chamber, surrounded by the humming pillars and pulsating energy. She closed her eyes and whispered a silent prayer for Lyra and all the fallen Marines. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. Their names would echo through history as heroes. And when she opened her eyes again, Captain Jana Rieck stepped forward into the next phase of her mission, guided by duty, tempered by grief, but unyielding in her resolve to see this through to victory. Chapter 8. The bridge of the KETH's Hope hummed with a quiet efficiency that Vesk had come to appreciate over the countless cycles he'd spent among the stars. The Teldar crew moved with an alien grace, their chitinous forms gliding between consoles and hollow displays with a precision born of centuries of interstellar service. Human officers, interspersed among them, worked seamlessly alongside their Teldar counterparts, their trust in Vesk's command unspoken but palpable. Vesk stood at the center of it all, his gaze sweeping over the holographic star map that floated before him. 12 vessels, each a beacon of deception, spread out across 7 star systems like seeds sown in the void. The KETH's Hope, his flagship, was the heart of this constellation, broadcasting false queen signatures designed to mimic the pheromonal calls of XHOR queens. His mind wandered briefly to Jana Rieck, her fiery determination and unyielding spirit a beacon he often found himself drawn to. She was out there, somewhere in the icy expanse beyond the 3rd synchronization zone, preparing for the storm that would soon engulf her position. His loyalty to Jana warred with his duty to this mission, a conflict as old as the stars themselves. The deployment began with a subtle hum throughout the ship, the pheromone broadcasting equipment whirring to life. It was an elegant deception, a symphony of chemical signals designed to confuse and distract. Vesk watched as the first tendrils of false queen signatures unfurled into the void, their invisible threads weaving a web of misdirection through the cosmos. From his command chair, he monitored the hive movements via Teldar sensors. The swarms were vast, dark clouds against the starlit backdrop, each one a mindless horde driven by primordial instincts and chemical commands. Most responded as predicted, their trajectories shifting in response to the false signals. They veered away from the synchronization zones, drawn towards the phantom queens like moths to a flame. Vesk's ancient Teldar patience allowed him to observe this dance with a calm detachment, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the shifting patterns of light and dark on the holographic displays. The minutes ticked by, each one critical in their precision. 80 seconds, 75-60, then it happened. A single swarm, larger than most, did not sway from its course. The Valdris brood, a monstrous conglomeration of dark matter and malice, continued its relentless advance towards the ice giant. Towards Jana. Vesk's heart quickened, but his expression remained stoic. This was what he'd feared, a single variable that could unravel the entire plan. He knew what it meant for Jana. She would face overwhelming odds alone if he did not intervene. His choices were stark. Redirect the fleet to distract the Valdris brood and risk compromising the synchronization, or maintain position and trust Jana's abilities and luck. The decision was agony, a tearing at his core. But in that moment of turmoil, one truth crystallized within him. Jana mattered more than any plan. "Captains," he broadcast to the other vessels, his voice steady despite the tempest raging inside him, "we have an unexpected development. The Valdris brood is not responding to our decoys. We must adjust course and engage." There was a pause, a heartbeat of silence where every officer on every bridge held their breath. Then the acknowledgements came, calm and resolute. "Redirecting to intercept," echoed through his comm from Captain Tarson aboard the LUMINAR Storm. "Engaging evasive maneuvers," followed from Captain Lyra on the Stellar Sentinel. Vesk nodded, his grip tightening on the armrest of his chair. "KETH's hope to all vessels, we form up on my coordinates. Maintain formation and prepare for engagement." The bridge crew sprang into action, human fingers dancing over keyboards while Teldar tendrils manipulated holographic interfaces with fluid precision. The KETH's hope pivoted gracefully, its trajectory altered to intercept the Valdris brood. Vesk opened a private comm channel to Jana, his voice barely above a whisper. "Jana, it's Vesk." There was a moment of static before her reply crackled through, her tone strained but determined. "Vesk, what's happening?" He hesitated, the weight of his decision pressing down on him like an atmospheric crush. He couldn't tell her he'd diverted the fleet for her. She wouldn't accept it. Instead, he offered something simpler, more profound. "I'm here," he said softly. She didn't respond immediately, but when she did, her voice was thicker with emotion. "Good to know." Vesk closed his eyes briefly, drawing strength from her unspoken gratitude. Then, with a deep breath, he turned back to the holomap, focusing on the approaching swarm. The KETH's hope surged forward, its engines throbbing with renewed vigor. The other vessels fell into formation behind it, a phalanx of steel and determination cutting through the void. They closed in on the Valdris brood, their false queen signals now amplified to maximum output, attempting one last-ditch effort to sway the hive. But the swarm was relentless, its trajectory unchanged. Vesk knew then that this would be a battle of wits and firepower, not subterfuge. He activated his tactical overlay, eyes scanning the incoming data streams as he plotted their approach. "All vessels," he commanded, weapons hot. "Target the leading edges of the swarm. Concentrate fire on breaking up their formation." The bridge crew acknowledged with nods and sharp clicks from Teldar mandibles. Weapons consoles blinked to life, energy cannons charging with a low hum that vibrated through the deck plating. As they neared the swarm, Vesk could see it clearly. The seething mass of XHOR drones, their insectoid forms bristling with organic weaponry and razor-sharp appendages. It was a sight both terrifying and awe-inspiring, a testament to nature's ruthless efficiency. "Weapons free," he ordered calmly. The KETH's hope trembled as its forward cannons unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts. The other ships followed suit, turning the void into a maelstrom of light and energy. Bolts of pure heat tore through the swarm's vanguard, leaving trails of vaporized drones in their wake. But the Valdris brood was vast beyond reckoning. For every drone destroyed, more seemed to pour forth from its depths, undeterred by the onslaught. Vesk watched impassively as the holomap updated with real-time casualties, both theirs and the XHOR's, but he felt no elation at their deaths. Only resolve. Hours stretched into an eternity of combat. The fleet dodged and weaved through the swarm, each ship a dancer in a deadly ballet, evading tendrils of drones while laying waste to others with precise strikes. Vesk fought with the calm of someone who has already accepted the cost, his decisions guided by cold calculation rather than emotion. Through it all, he kept tabs on Jana's position. The ice giant loomed large on their sensors, its frozen surface a stark contrast to the fiery chaos unfolding above it. He could almost see her down there, battling against her own demons and the encroaching darkness. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the swarm started to thin. Whether due to sheer attrition or some unintended response to their chemical assaults, the Valdris brood's relentless advance began to falter. The drones' formations broke, their cohesion shattered by the unceasing barrage from above. Vesk seized the opportunity. "Cease fire," he ordered, his voice cutting through the din of battle. "All vessels, hold position and maintain defensive posture." The bridge crew complied without question, weapons falling silent as the Kytheric Hope, and its consorts hovered in the void like predators scenting prey. Vesk turned to Jana's channel once more, his fingers tracing patterns on the console as he sought the right words. "Jana," he said finally, "we've bought you some time." There was a long pause before she responded, her voice barely audible over the crackle of static. "Thank you, Vesk," he nodded, though she couldn't see him. "Hold position and prepare for extraction. We'll be there as soon as we can." As he closed the channel, Vesk felt a strange sense of peace wash over him. He had made his choice, and whatever the cost, he would face it head-on. For Jana, for the Alliance, for the hope that tomorrow might bring a brighter dawn. The Kytheric Hope and its fleet held their ground, watching as the Valdris brood retreated into the cosmic abyss, leaving behind only the echoes of battle and the cold emptiness of space. Vesk knew they weren't out of danger yet. The synchronization zone still needed protection. But for now, this was enough. He looked out at his crew, human and Teldar alike, their faces etched with fatigue but resolute determination. They had fought well today, and tomorrow they would fight again. Together. And so, amidst the stars and the silence of the void, Vesk commanded his fleet onward, guided by loyalty, duty, and the unyielding hope that in this vast, indifferent universe, there was still room for redemption. Chapter 9. Shattered Foundations. Captain Jana Rieck stared at the hollow display in her ready room, the news feed cycling through a barrage of breaking headlines that felt more like a barrage than information. Chancellor Webb's stern face filled the screen, his expression a mask of shock as he was escorted by Security Council members, their grips firm on his arms. The image cut to chaotic streets, protesters clashing with riot police in the shadow of Federation towers, holographic banners decrying corruption fluttering in the wind. She had anticipated this moment, but the speed at which the government unraveled was staggering. "Captain," Counselor Yeva's voice cut through her thoughts over the comm, "we need to address the Alliance commanders. They're looking for guidance." Jana nodded, though Yeva couldn't see it. "Give me a moment." She turned off the news feed, the silence of her ready room suddenly oppressive. Her fingers hovered over the controls, pulling up the encrypted files containing the Meridian contracts. The evidence was damning, contracts that detailed not just corporate complicity but ministerial involvement in Kytheric licensing. Names she recognized, faces she had seen in holo ads promising stability and progress, were listed as beneficiaries of wars they helped orchestrate. Her fury was cold, a simmering ember that burned with a steady, unyielding heat. She scrolled through the documents, each line a testament to betrayal. Ministers profiting from conflict, their signatures etched in digital ink, sealing deals that had cost countless lives and shattered worlds. "Tarek," she said, activating the comm, "get me an update on system integrity. I need to know where our forces are strong and where we're vulnerable." Tarek's voice came through clear but strained. Working on it, Captain, the Kyther relays. They're activating faster than expected. Systems are going dark one after another. Vesk, Jana added, her gaze fixed on the contracts. I need you to coordinate with local defense forces. We need to set up contingency plans for isolated systems. Vesk's response was immediate. On it, Captain, but we're spread thin. The Alliance is holding, but nothing, Jana interrupted. We adapt and overcome. That's what we do. She turned off the comm, her mind racing. The Kyther response was swift and brutal. Their subspace relays activated in force, slicing through Federation space like a scalpel through flesh. Systems isolated, communications severed, leaving worlds adrift in silence. Jana realized with a sickening clarity that the Kyther had been waiting for this moment. The corporate conspiracy wasn't just a side effect of greed and ambition. It was part of their plan. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples as she tried to piece together the fragments. The Federation's collapse played into the Kyther's hands perfectly. Chaos, division, it weakened them, made them easier targets for conquest. And the Kyther, with their relentless precision and cold intelligence, would seize every advantage. Counselor, Jana said, activating Yeva's comm again, I need a briefing on our internal communications. How are we holding up against the information blackout? Yeva's voice was steady. We're maintaining secure channels through quantum relays. The Alliance is coordinating well, but there are whispers of panic among civilians. They need reassurance. Jana nodded, though Yeva still couldn't see her. I'll address them personally. She took a deep breath and stood up, pacing the room as she formulated her message. The door to her ready room slid open with a soft hiss, revealing Mira's anxious face. Captain, we need you on the bridge. Jana nodded, following Mira out. The bridge was a hive of activity, officers barking orders, screens displaying real-time updates from across the Federation. Jana stepped onto the command platform, her presence instantly calming the chaos. Status report, she demanded. Mira gestured to a holographic display showing a map of the Federation with systems flickering out like dying stars. The Kyther relays are cutting us off systematically. We're losing contact with key worlds. Jana's gaze hardened as she studied the map. We need to prioritize defense around high population centers and strategic points. Send reinforcements where needed, but keep our main forces mobile. We can't afford to be pinned down. The crew nodded in unison, executing her orders with precision. A sudden flicker on Jana's comm caught her attention. Kurto's face materialized before her, his usually impassive expression tinged with urgency. Captain Rieck, he acknowledged with a nod. I have information that could be crucial. Jana raised an eyebrow but gestured for him to continue. We intercepted Kyther transmissions, he explained. They're coordinating their relays not just to isolate systems, but to create a barrier around key worlds. They plan to cut off entire sectors from the rest of the Federation. Thank you, Kurto, Jana replied, her mind racing with implications. She turned to Mira. Redirect our efforts. We need to break through those barriers and re-establish contact. The bridge crew sprang into action as Kurto's information filtered down. With the immediate crisis somewhat managed, Jana stepped back from the command platform, signaling for Counselor Yeva to join her in private. They moved to a quiet alcove on the bridge where they could speak without interruption. How are you holding up? Yeva asked softly, her eyes reflecting a mix of concern and respect. Jana sighed, rubbing her temples again. I'm processing. This is beyond anything we anticipated. Yeva nodded, understanding in her gaze. You're doing what needs to be done, Jana. That's all anyone can ask. Jana looked at Yeva, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. She couldn't shake the feeling of being thrust into a role she never wanted but was now obligated to fulfill. Yeva, she said quietly, I never asked for this. I just wanted to serve and protect my people. The counselor placed a hand on Jana's shoulder, offering comfort in her steady presence. You don't have to want it, Jana. You just have to do it. Leading doesn't mean you have to embrace the power. It means you take responsibility for those who need guidance. Jana absorbed Yeva's words, finding solace in their simplicity and truth. She stepped back onto the command platform, her expression resolute. The bridge crew turned to face her, waiting for direction. Open a channel to all Alliance and Federation forces, Jana ordered. Her voice echoed through the comms network, reaching out to every ship, every base, every citizen within range. "People of the Federation," she began, her tone steady and clear. "I stand before you not as a leader seeking power, but as a soldier dedicated to protecting our home. The events of the past days have been tumultuous, and our government has failed us in ways we never imagined. But I promise you this, the Alliance will defend the border and protect civilians, regardless of politics." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We are fighting not just against an external enemy, but also against a corruption that has seeped into the very heart of our society. The Kyther seek to exploit our divisions, to fracture us into isolated worlds where they can strike with impunity. But we will not be divided." Jana's gaze swept over the bridge crew, their faces etched with determination and hope. "We are stronger together," she continued. "We will defend our people, rebuild what has been broken, and forge a future free from the shadows of greed and deceit. This is our time to stand tall, to show that we are more than just fragments of a collapsed government. We are united in purpose, driven by the same desire for justice and peace." She took a deep breath before concluding. "To every soldier, every civilian, every voice crying out for stability, we hear you. The Alliance stands with you. Together, we will overcome this darkness and emerge stronger than ever before." The bridge erupted into applause as Jana's words echoed through the comms network. She turned to Yeva, a silent thank you in her eyes. "Let's get back to work," she said softly, leading the way back to the command platform. The battle was far from over, but with each passing moment, Jana Rieck became more than just a captain, a symbol of hope amidst the shattered foundations of the Federation. Chapter 10, Kyther's Surrender. The echoes of gunfire still rang in Tarek's ears, a harsh symphony that drowned out the silence of Titan's underground transit network. The dim, flickering lights cast long, dancing shadows across the cold metal walls, reflecting the chaos etched onto his team's faces. Lyra lay motionless on the gritty floor, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. Her body had been shredded by the trap Meridian had set. Tarek knelt beside her, his breath ragged and his hands trembling as he closed her lifeless eyes. He felt a pang of guilt. He should have seen it coming, should have anticipated their enemy's ruthlessness. But there was no time for remorse now. They were deep in enemy territory, and the data package they carried was more than just information. It was the key to humanity's future. "Tarek," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of distant machinery. She clutched her side, blood seeping through her fingers. "We can't stay here." Tarek looked up at her, his gaze hard and resolute. He nodded grimly before turning to the others who remained standing but battered. "Move out. We stick to the plan." The transit tunnels were a maze of narrow corridors and labyrinthine passages, each step echoing with the weight of their desperation. Tarek led them through the darkness, his combat skills honed to razor-sharp precision. Every corner they turned held the potential for ambush, every shadow concealed a threat. They fought with controlled fury, every bullet counted, every movement precise. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and the acrid tang of ozone from spent plasma rounds. Tarek's heart pounded in his chest as he took down enemy after enemy, each kill a necessary evil. This wasn't about glory or honor, it was about survival and the data they carried. The data that could change everything. A sudden burst of static from an old comm unit tucked into the corner of the tunnel interrupted their relentless pace. A holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern visage of Darius Vance, CEO of Meridian. His voice, smooth and calculating, filled the confined space. "Tarek," Vance said, his gaze unblinking, "you can't outrun us. Give me the data package and I'll make you wealthier than your wildest dreams. Forget what you've seen. Start over." The offer hung in the air like a toxic miasma, seductive in its cold logic. Tarek's team exchanged glances, their exhaustion evident. But Tarek's response was immediate and unwavering. "You don't understand what we're fighting for," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying an unyielding conviction. "This isn't about wealth or power. It's about humanity." Vance's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, or disdain. "You're mistaken, Tarek. This is always about power." Tarek reached out and crushed the comm unit under his boot, silencing Vance's voice. He turned to his team, his expression grim. Keep moving, he ordered. We're almost there. The final leg of their journey was a running battle through industrial corridors, the clamor of gunfire and explosions echoing like thunder. Tarek fought with a precision that bordered on supernatural. Each movement was calculated, each shot lethal. He moved as if in a dance, his body a weapon honed by countless battles. But even he couldn't fight off Meridian security forces forever. Zara's steps faltered and she stumbled against the wall, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Tarek turned to help her, but she waved him away. Go, she gasped. Take it, finish this. Tarek hesitated for a moment before nodding. He knew what he had to do, what they all did, and it tore at his heart. With one last glance at Zara's determined face, he moved forward, the data package clutched tightly in his hand. The freighter was hidden in a maintenance bay, its rusted hull a stark contrast against the pristine walls of Meridian's infrastructure. Tarek rushed inside, his heart pounding like a drumbeat in his chest. The pilots were already prepping for launch, their faces pale but determined. They exchanged nods as he hurried past them, heading straight to the bridge. Launch, he barked, his voice echoing through the ship's comm system. The freighter trembled and groaned as it lifted off the ground, its engines roaring to life. Tarek watched out of a small viewport as Titan receded into the distance, its icy surface pockmarked with the scars of their battle. The life he left behind, a life filled with sacrifice and loss, faded from view. Tarek's hands shook as he opened a comm channel back to Jana Rieck. Her face appeared on the screen, her expression a mix of relief and concern. Jana, Tarek said, his voice hollow, the data is yours. There was a pause before she spoke. You did it, Tarek. I hope so. He leaned against the wall, exhaustion weighing heavily on him. The ship's engines hummed softly around him as he stared at the stars outside. Tarek, Jana began, but he cut her off. I'm alive, he said, trying to muster a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. For now. The transmission ended with an abrupt finality, leaving Tarek alone in the dimly lit corridor of the freighter. He made his way to the med bay, where a medic was already waiting. Let's see those wounds, she said softly, her voice gentle despite the urgency in her movements. She cleaned and dressed his injuries efficiently, her touch surprisingly soothing. As she worked, Tarek felt the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on him. He was alive but broken. The data package was secure, but at what cost? Zara's face flashed through his mind, the determination in her eyes as she waved him away. You'll be okay, the medic said, her voice pulling him back to the present. Just rest. Tarek nodded, but he knew there would be no rest for him, not until this was truly over. He moved to a small cot, his body aching with every step. As he lay down, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. In the quiet of the med bay, Tarek found himself speaking aloud, his voice barely more than a whisper. Lyra, he said softly, addressing the memory of his fallen team member. Zara, this was worth it. His words hung in the air, a promise that felt hollow. He wasn't sure if he believed them, not entirely. The weight of their sacrifices pressed down on him like an anchor. But he knew one thing for certain. Humanity's future was now in Jana Rieck's hands, and with it, a glimmer of hope in the vast expanse of the cosmos. Tarek allowed himself a moment of peace amidst the chaos, one small beacon of light in the darkness that had consumed him. With a deep breath, he closed his eyes and drifted into an uneasy sleep, the echoes of battle fading into the void. Chapter 11. The hive mind the hull breach was a screaming maelstrom of metal and fire, a brutal kiss of vacuum that sucked at Jana's boots as she stepped onto the Valdris Minas 9 relay station. Her Marines poured out behind her, assault rifles barking in unison, bolts of plasma cutting through the dim, alien light. The relay station loomed before them, a hollowed asteroid converted into a labyrinth of kytheric technology. It was vast, a colossal nest carved from rock and lined with shimmering organic structures that pulsed with an otherworldly glow. Jana's helmet visor filtered the harsh, multi-hued illumination, translating it into shades her human eyes could comprehend. The corridors were wide enough to accommodate entire platoons, but twisted in ways that defied Euclidean geometry, as if designed by a mind unburdened by the constraints of linear thought. The air was thick with ozone and an acrid tang that prickled the back of her throat, kytheric energy, raw and dangerous. Her fighting style was a dance of death, precise and lethal. Each movement augmented by the alien instinct coursing through her queen link, a symphony of neural impulses that guided her hand and foot placements with preternatural accuracy. She felt the station around her, not just saw it. The Kytheric defenders materialized from the shadows, silent as ghosts, their forms fluid and ever-shifting. They moved with an efficiency born of eons of adaptation, but Jana was ready. Her assault rifle hummed as she fired controlled bursts into the oncoming horde. Bolts of plasma seared through the defenders, leaving trails of vaporized flesh behind them. Her Marines followed suit, their training and adrenaline honed to a razor's edge. The defenders fell, not with screams but with whispers of disrupted circuits, like static on an old comm channel. Jana's Queen Link was a constant hum in her mind, a river of information flowing through her synapses. It guided her steps, warned her of hidden hazards, and revealed the patterns of the station's defenses as if they were extensions of her own body. She could feel where the next wave of defenders would emerge before they materialized, anticipating their movements with an eerie prescience. The relay station was a symphony of wrongness, beautiful yet unsettling, like a dream that lingered too long after waking. The corridors were adorned with bioluminescent fronds and crystalline structures that refracted light into kaleidoscopic patterns. The air thrummed with a low vibration, a pulse that seemed to resonate within her very bones. As they pushed deeper into the station, Jana's awareness of the Kytheric network expanded. She could sense the nodes and conduits, feel the ebb and flow of power through the relay systems. The disorganization from Vesk's distraction was evident. Usually precise pathways were chaotic, defenses misaligned. It made their progress swifter but more perilous. The station's chaos meant unpredictable encounters. The Marines moved like shadows, their armor glinting under the alien lights. They fought in tight formations, covering each other's flanks with ruthless efficiency. Jana led from the front, her presence a beacon of calm amidst the storm. She could sense Mira's remote team somewhere on the relay station, a distant pulse against her mind. Finally, they reached the central control nexus, a chamber so vast it made the grand halls of ancient cathedrals seem modest. The walls were a seamless expanse of holographic displays, each showing a different Kytheric relay in the sector. Subspace isolation barriers flickered into existence and vanished again, cutting systems off from one another like veins severed by an unseen surgeon. Jana stepped into the nexus, her boots echoing on the crystalline floor. The air here was charged with raw power, crackling against her skin. She felt a surge of awe and terror at the scale of what she was witnessing. This was the heart of Kytheric communication, a nerve center capable of coordinating an entire galaxy. "Don't destroy it," Jana ordered, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Reconfigure it." Mira's team began their work immediately, remote commands flashing across Jana's visor display. They interfaced with the station's systems, navigating layers of alien code with precision. Each command was a delicate dance, a balance between coercion and manipulation. Jana watched as holograms shifted, showing progress in real time. The counter-resonance propagation calibration was complex, requiring intricate adjustments to synchronize frequencies across disparate relays. It was like tuning an instrument made from the fabric of space itself. As Mira's team worked, Jana felt a new presence, an intelligence watching her through the Queen Link. It was like cold water being poured into her mind, shockingly clear and overwhelmingly vast. The Overmind. She had encountered it before on the Cold Moon battle, but this time it was different. This time it was here. The sensation was both terrifying and fascinating. The Overmind's awareness enveloped her, not with aggression but with an ancient, detached curiosity. It had been watching her since that first encounter, she realized. Waiting, studying. The revelation sent a shiver down her spine. Jana stood still in the center of the nexus, her senses heightened by adrenaline and fear. She could feel the Overmind's gaze, unblinking and vast. It was aware of every thought, every movement, an omniscient entity with millennia of experience. Yet there was no hostility, only a deep, immutable patience. Part of her wanted to recoil from this intrusion, but another part, the scientist and soldier combined, found it exhilarating. She had spent her life studying the Kytheric, seeking to understand their technology and biology. Here, she was face to face with something far greater, an intelligence that transcended individuality, a collective consciousness. Jana took a deep breath, steadying herself. She let the Overmind's presence wash over her, not trying to block it but allowing it to see her as clearly as she could perceive it. There was no point in hiding. This entity had seen her at her most vulnerable and triumphant moments. It knew her strengths and weaknesses. The Marines around her continued their work, oblivious to the silent confrontation taking place within Jana's mind. Mira's voice crackled over the comms, reporting progress and seeking adjustments. Jana responded with calm authority, her focus divided between the tactical commands and the cosmic encounter unfolding inside her. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Jana faced the Overmind's awareness, not with fear but with curiosity. She was a tiny speck in the vast expanse of its consciousness, yet she stood defiant, unyielding. This was her mission, her purpose, to challenge the Kytheric and their ancient overlords. The Nexus hummed softly as Mira's team completed another calibration cycle. The holographic displays shifted, showing synchronized relays blinking into cohesion. Jana felt a surge of satisfaction. Her order not to destroy, but to reconfigure was bearing fruit. They were retooling the Kytheric technology for their own purposes. As the final adjustments were made, Jana sensed a subtle shift in the Overmind's attention. It retreated slightly, its gaze no longer intrusive but watchful. She understood then that this entity was not an adversary to be defeated, but an enigma to be unraveled, a challenge that transcended mere combat. Jana let out a slow breath, her eyes scanning the Nexus one last time before turning back to her team. "Good work," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. The Marines looked up from their consoles, relief mingling with exhaustion on their faces. They had fought through countless defenders and reconfigured an alien system beyond human comprehension. With the central control nexus secured, Jana knew they still faced a long road ahead. But for now, she stood victorious amidst the Kytheric technology, her mind alight with the echo of an ancient intelligence. The Overmind watched, and she let it watch, interested, unafraid, ready to face whatever came next. Jana's gaze returned to the holographic displays, watching as more relays synced into place. The counter-resonance propagation was almost complete. Soon, they would have a network capable of countering Kytheric control. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of reflection, standing at the crossroads of human ingenuity and alien mystery. The Overmind's presence lingered like a whisper in her mind, a reminder that their battle was far from over. Yet, Jana found solace in knowing that even as they fought against the Kytheric, they were also part of something greater, a cosmic dance between intelligence and instinct, humanity and the unknown. And she would face it all head-on, guided by the Queen Link and her unyielding spirit. "Let's move out," she commanded softly, leading her team from the Nexus with a renewed sense of purpose. The relay station awaited further exploration, but for now, their immediate objective was achieved. Jana stepped back into the twisting corridors, her steps echoing through the vast, alien structure. The battle had only just begun, but she was ready. For whatever came next, she would meet it with resolve and curiosity. Chapter 12. The line of fire, the armor locked into place with a series of sharp clicks, sealing Captain Jana Rieck inside a cocoon of reinforced ceramic and smart metal. She flexed her hands inside the gloves, feeling the familiar weight of her combat gear. This was not just the duty of a commander, it was the call of a soldier. The station's corridors had become a battlefield, alien architecture twisted into killing grounds, and she intended to defend them with every fiber of her being. Jana stepped out of the suit-up chamber, her boots echoing on the cold metal deck. Her Marine team awaited her, geared up and ready, eyes reflecting a mix of determination and awe. They had seen her fight before, but never like this, never against an enemy that could read their minds and twist their fears into weapons. "Listen up," Jana barked, her voice echoing through the chamber. "We're heading to the relay's antenna array. Our job is to secure it at any cost. The Kytheric are coming in hot, so expect resistance from every shadow. Stay tight, watch each other's backs, and remember, you're not just fighting for your lives. You're fighting for everyone on this station." A chorus of "Aye" Captain rang out as she led them through the labyrinthine corridors. The station's design was a nightmare of alien geometry, angles that shouldn't exist twisting into narrow passages and sudden open spaces. It was a maze built by minds not meant to comprehend human logic. The first kytheric they encountered lunged from an intersection, its chitinous body gleaming under the harsh emergency lighting. Jana moved with a fluidity born of years of training and enhanced by the Queen Link's instincts. She sidestepped the creature's strike, her rifle firing in a controlled burst that tore through its exoskeleton. Her Marines followed suit, their weapons barking in unison. The corridors echoed with gunfire and the sickening crunch of alien flesh. Jana fought on the front line, her movements precise and lethal. She could feel the Kytherics rage through the Queen Link, a seething tide of hatred that only fueled her resolve. "Mira," she barked into her comm, "how's it going?" "Almost there, Jana," Mira replied, her voice strained but focused. "The counter-resonance suite is sinking, but these Kytheric systems, they're unlike anything I've ever seen." Jana grunted in acknowledgement, pushing deeper into the station. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and blood. She could hear Vesk's calm voice over the comm, relaying updates from his fleet. "Veskin fleet to Captain Rieck," he said, his tone measured despite the chaos around him. "We're holding, but reinforcements are incoming. The Valdris brood is relentless." Jana's heart ached for the sacrifice unfolding light years away. Vesk's ships were dying, one by one, buying them time with their lives. "Hold on, Vesk," Jana replied, her voice steady. "We're almost there." Aboard the Again, Curto stood beside Alliance officers in the command center, his eyes scanning holoscreens displaying Kytheric attack patterns. He had become an invaluable asset, his knowledge of the Overmind's tactics providing crucial insights. "Captain," he said into his comm, "the Kytheric are focusing their assault on Sector 14. It appears they're trying to flank your position." Jana acknowledged the intel, adjusting her route accordingly. The Marines followed her lead, their formation tight as they navigated through the twisted corridors. The fight grew more intense with each step. Kytheric warriors poured from hidden vents and ambush points, their numbers seemingly endless. One Marine went down under a swarm of creatures, his screams echoing briefly before being silenced by a final burst of gunfire from his comrades. Jana paused only long enough to ensure the fallen were covered, then pressed on. Every second counted, every life lost weighed heavy on her heart. "Mira, status?" she demanded again. I'm close," Mira replied, desperation tinging her voice. "The calibration is delicate. If I rush it, you don't have a choice," Jana cut her off harshly. "We can't hold forever." In the void of space, Vesk's voice remained steady despite the carnage around him. "Captain Rieck, KETH Hope reporting heavy damage. We're losing engines, but we'll keep fighting." Jana clenched her jaw, pushing harder through the alien corridors. The antenna array loomed ahead, a gleaming spire of Kytheric tech rising from the station's core. They were close, so close. The final assault was brutal. Kytheric warriors flooded from every direction, their forms shifting to mimic human shapes in a desperate bid to sow confusion. But Jana saw through their tricks, her Queen Link granting her an unparalleled awareness of their true forms and intentions. Her rifle clicked empty. She dropped it and drew her sidearm, the familiar heft of the pistol comforting in her hand. She moved like a whirlwind, shooting down foes with precision while barking orders to her Marines. They fought back to back, forming a defensive perimeter around the antenna array. Minutes ticked by like hours. Every second felt like an eternity as Jana's Marines held their ground against overwhelming odds. Finally, with a last surge of effort, they cleared the immediate area of Kytheric threats. "Mira," she panted into her comm. I've got it," Mira replied, exhaustion evident in every syllable. "The calibration is complete." Jana let out a sigh of relief mixed with grim satisfaction. The synchronization window was theirs, if only for a moment. "We hold this line, Marines," Jana bellowed, her voice echoing through the now-quiet corridor. "For Vesk, for Mira, for every life on this station." Her words resonated through the ranks, galvanizing her troops despite their exhaustion and wounds. The antenna array stood secure behind them, humming with newly calibrated energy. But as Jana looked out at the sea of alien carnage around her, a new weight settled in her chest. She keyed her comm to Vesk's fleet frequency. Veskan fleet, she said softly. We've secured the relay. The calibration is complete. There was no response. Silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity before the comm crackled to life once more. Captain Rieck, it was Vesk's voice, calm and composed as ever. It's done. Hold the line. Jana's throat tightened as she realized the implications. The KETH's Hope had gone silent, his ships were gone. Vesk, don't, he interrupted gently. You have your orders. The synchronization must proceed. The comm went dead, leaving Jana standing amidst the wreckage, her heart heavy with grief and pride. She looked at her Marines, their faces gaunt but determined. We hold this line, she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. For Vesk and for everyone who sacrificed to get us here. The antenna array hummed behind them, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. The synchronization could proceed. At a cost Jana would carry with her forever. Kyther, monitoring from the again, felt a pang of admiration mixed with sorrow. This human commander was a force unlike any he had encountered. Her resolve and sacrifice mirrored Vesk's quiet heroism, a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who fought against the Overmind's tyranny. As Jana held her position, she knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, they would face it together. For now, the line was held, Vesk's legacy lived on in their unbreakable resolve. Chapter 13. Kyther's Shadows Captain Jana Rieck stood in the dimly lit command center of the relay station, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that flickered with grim confirmation. The KETH's Hope was lost. Vesk, her friend, her ally, was gone. The weight of that loss crushed down on her chest, a physical pain that stole her breath for a moment. She let herself feel it, the sharp edges of grief cutting through her resolve, but only for a moment. Jana took a deep breath, steeled herself against the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm her and pushed them aside. Grief would have to wait, duty called. She straightened her shoulders, squared her jaw, and returned to command. The synchronization window was in 2 hours. Mira's calibration was holding steady, but there was no time for complacency. Tarek's data package had arrived, thousands of encrypted files containing the full Meridian contract archives. Jana knew she couldn't afford to delay. She dove into the documents with a sense of urgency that bordered on desperation. The first few files were mundane, routine communications, supply chains, and financial reports. But as she delved deeper, the true horror began to unravel before her eyes. Corporate logos, names she recognized from the highest echelons of Federation power, were entwined with technical schematics, biological research notes, and genetic maps. Jana's heart pounded as she read through the redacted sections, piecing together the fragmented information like a grim puzzle. The corporations hadn't merely licensed kytheric technology. They had provided the Kyther with human genetic samples. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she saw the implications. The Kyther were designing XHOR that could specifically target human biology. Her mind raced back to Vesk, to the countless lives lost on the KETH's Hope and beyond. The corporations weren't just complicit, they had been orchestrating a genocide. The sheer magnitude of their betrayal left her reeling. Cold fury ignited within her, burning away any lingering traces of sorrow. Jana's hands trembled as she accessed the quantum link to convene the Alliance Council. Their holographic avatars materialized in the command center, each counselor's expression a mix of concern and caution. Counselor Yeva, known for her political acumen, spoke first. Captain Rieck, we understand you have urgent information. Jana didn't waste time on pleasantries. I've reviewed the Meridian contract archives. The corporations provided human genetic samples to the Kyther. They designed XHOR to target humans specifically. A collective gasp echoed through the room as the counselors absorbed the implications. Release this evidence immediately, Jana declared, her voice unyielding. The people of the Federation deserve to know what was done in their name. Counselor Yeva raised a hand, her avatar flickering with urgency. Captain, we must consider the timing. The synchronization window is critical. If we release this information now, it could cause political chaos that compromises our military operation. Jana's grip tightened on the console. She understood the stakes, but couldn't ignore the truth any longer. With all due respect, Counselor Yeva, the people have a right to know. Transparency is essential if we're to regain their trust and unity in this fight against the Kyther. Yeva leaned forward, her eyes intense. Trust will not matter if our military operation fails because of internal strife. We need stability during the synchronization window. This revelation could ignite riots, civil unrest. Which is exactly why it must be released now, Jana interjected, her voice rising. The people deserve to know before we synchronize, not after. They have a right to decide their future based on the truth. The counselors exchanged glances, weighing her words against the potential risks. Counselor Alaric, known for his pragmatism, broke the silence. Captain Rieck, your dedication is commendable, but we must prioritize the mission. We cannot allow internal turmoil to jeopardize our chances of survival. Jana's resolve didn't waver. And I won't let another life be lost because of lies and deceit. The truth will set us free, even if it's painful. Counselor Yeva sighed, her expression a blend of resignation and respect. Very well, Captain, we trust your judgment. But know this, the consequences may fall on you and your command. Jana nodded, accepting the burden without hesitation. I understand. The quantum link flickered as the counselors concluded their session, leaving Jana alone in the command center. She took a deep breath and initiated the broadcast protocol. The evidence would go live across the Federation, uncensored, devastating. The transmission began with a series of encrypted files unraveling like a tangled web. Names, dates, genetic maps, and technical schematics poured out into the public sphere. Jana watched as the data streamed outward, knowing it marked a turning point for humanity. There was no going back now. Within minutes, the political response was immediate and chaotic. News feeds exploded with outrage, accusations, and demands for retribution. Protests erupted in major cities. The virtual reality networks buzzed with furious debates. Jana could feel the shockwaves of unrest rippling through the Federation, but she didn't allow herself to be distracted. She had a synchronization to run. Mira's calibration needed constant monitoring, and Tarek would soon return with updates from his end. Jana focused on her tasks, her mind a whirlwind of calculations and strategic planning. In the quiet moments between duties, Jana found herself speaking softly to the memory of Vesk. "We did this together," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the command center. "We started it together and we end it together." Vesk's loss weighed heavily on her heart, but his spirit seemed to linger in every decision she made, guiding her through the storm. She felt a strange peace settling over her. He would have wanted this truth exposed. The hours ticked by with agonizing slowness. As the synchronization window approached, Jana ensured that all systems were primed for action. Mira's readings remained stable, and Tarek confirmed the data package had been fully integrated into their operational plan. Jana stood at the command console, her eyes fixed on the countdown timer. In 2 minutes, the synchronization would begin. She took one last look around the command center, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and determination. This was it, the moment they had trained for, prepared for, and now faced head-on. The final seconds ticked away, and Jana initiated the synchronization sequence. The command center filled with a soft hum as the station's systems aligned with the Kyther network. It felt like a dance on the edge of a knife. One misstep could plunge them into darkness. But Jana trusted in her team, in Mira's precision, and in Tarek's unyielding support. They were doing this not just for survival, but for every life lost to the deception and greed that had driven them to this point. The synchronization window opened, and data began flowing between their systems and the Kyther network. Jana watched with bated breath as the connection stabilized, her fingers poised over controls ready to intervene if necessary. But Mira's calibration held, and Tarek's updates streamlined the process seamlessly. As they delved deeper into the Kyther network, Jana felt a strange sense of awe mixed with dread. They were walking a narrow path, one that could lead to either triumph or annihilation. But she didn't look back. She couldn't afford to dwell on what might have been or what could still go wrong. With each passing moment, the synchronization deepened, and Jana knew they were closer than ever to understanding their enemy. The truth was out there, in every genetic code, in every hidden archive. The key to turning the tide of this war lay within reach. Jana took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving the holographic displays. This was more than just a battle. It was a reckoning, a chance to expose the lies that had cost them so much and forge a new path forward. In that moment, she knew Vesk would be proud, proud of the choice she made, the stand she took, and the fight they continued together. The synchronization window hummed with life, and Jana Rieck stood at the helm, ready to lead her people through the storm. Chapter 14. The hour of decision, the synchronization window loomed like a ticking clock, its 60-minute countdown resonating through every corner of Captain Jana Rieck's mind. The bridge of the again buzzed with an electric tension, a mix of anticipation and dread palpable in the air. Fleet commanders, their faces etched with determination, stood at their stations, eyes fixed on holographic displays that mapped out the sector like a star chart of destiny. 3 stargates glowed softly across the void, silent sentinels awaiting activation. The Valdris relay hummed with an eerie resonance, its signals pulsing through subspace in rhythmic beats. Tarek's extraction fleet was en route, their trajectories plotted with precision on Jana's tactical screen. Mira, her trusted engineer, was hunched over a console, fingers dancing across controls as she ran final systems checks on the counter-resonance suite. "All systems nominal," Mira announced, her voice steady despite the storm of uncertainty brewing outside. "The Again and the other carriers are ready," Jana nodded, her gaze sweeping over the bridge crew. "Everyone, this is it. In 1 hour, we change everything." She stepped forward, her voice rising to fill the room. "For millennia, humanity has looked up at the stars with wonder and fear. We've explored, colonized, and built. But today, we stand on the brink of something greater, something that defines who we are as a species." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "The Kyther Overmind thinks they can dictate our fate. They offer us a choice. Submit or perish, but I say let's give them another option. Let's show them what humanity stands for." Her voice hardened. "We are not pawns in their game, we will not be managed. And we will certainly not accept decline." A murmured chorus of assent rippled through the bridge. "In 1 hour," Jana continued, her tone softer but no less resolute, "we synchronize the gates and send a message to every system, one that says we stand together. United," she looked at each member of her crew. "That's our choice, now let's make it count." As Jana finished her speech, a sudden surge of static crackled through the subspace network. The bridge fell silent as a vast, ancient voice echoed from every speaker. It was like the rumble of distant thunder, resonating with an authority that transcended time and space. "Captain Rieck," the Overmind intoned, its words both familiar and alien, "you have made your choice known. But understand this. I am the Kyther Overmind, the architect of galactic civilization for eons uncounted." Jana's expression remained impassive, though her grip on the edge of her console tightened. "I offer you a path to survival. Stand down. Allow us to complete our pruning of the border systems, and your core worlds will be spared. Refuse, and I shall direct every XHOR in existence to attack simultaneously." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances, but Jana held up a hand, silencing any potential response. "The Kyther have managed galactic civilization for millennia," the Overmind continued, its voice taking on a logical, almost clinical tone. "We have guided countless species through cycles of growth and decline. We can manage you." Jana's mind raced as she formulated her reply. When the Overmind fell silent, she activated her broadcast system, ensuring every word reached every corner of humanity's space. "I speak to you now not just as Captain Jana Rieck," she began, her voice calm yet unyielding, "but as a representative of every human being in this galaxy. You have heard the Kyther Overmind's offer. Let me make mine clear." She took a deep breath. "I am not interested in managed decline. I am not interested in trading our freedom for survival. The choice is simple. We stand together or we fall apart. And humanity will not yield." Her gaze hardened as she looked directly into the invisible lens of her broadcast. "The Kyther have made their threat clear," Jana continued. "They believe they can dictate our fate with fear and coercion. But I say to them and to every human listening, we do not back down from threats. We fight for what we believe in." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "So let this be known, humanity refuses. Every system, every commander, every civilian will stand with us. Let the Overmind direct its XHOR hordes to attack. We will meet them head-on. And if need be, she added softly but firmly. We will fight to the last star. Her broadcast ended and Jana turned back to her crew. Mira nodded, a grim smile on her lips. Fleet-wide broadcast complete, Tarek reported from his station. Every system is receiving it now. The bridge erupted in cheers as reports poured in from across the Federation. Systems declared their refusal to yield. Vega Prime, Orion's Belt, Alpha Centauri, and countless others. Civilian channels buzzed with declarations of support, voices united in a chorus of defiance. Jana watched as the tide of humanities will swept through her screens. It was more than she had ever hoped for, a galaxy-wide display of unity that transcended borders and ideologies. She felt a swell of pride and gratitude, knowing that whatever happened next, they would face it together. With 40 minutes left to synchronization, Jana stepped into her private quarters. The door slid shut behind her, sealing her off from the hum of activity on the bridge. She sat at the small table in the center of the room, her gaze fixed on a hollow image of her family, a reminder of what she fought for. The Queen's presence stirred in her mind, a familiar warmth amidst the storm. Jana closed her eyes and spoke softly. Are you ready? A sense of calm washed over her as the alien consciousness responded. Yes. Jana smiled, feeling a strange kinship with the ancient entity sharing her thoughts. It was an unusual alliance, a human and an alien queen united in their quest for survival. She stood and returned to the bridge, her steps measured and deliberate. The countdown clock hovered above the main console, its digits ticking away the final minutes. With 1 hour left until synchronization, Jana took her seat at the command chair, surveying her crew with a mixture of pride and determination. 1 hour, she announced, her voice steady. In 60 minutes we change everything. The bridge crew responded with renewed vigor, each member focused on their tasks, final checks, last-minute adjustments, and whispered pep talks. Jana looked out at the stars stretched before them, a vast expanse of possibilities and dangers. This was it, the moment humanity chose its future, not through fear or manipulation, but through unity and defiance. The synchronization window neared, and with it, the promise of a new dawn, or perhaps a final battle. As the clock ticked down, Jana felt a sense of tranquility wash over her. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would stand tall, united against the stars, ready to face whatever came their way. And that, Jana thought with a small smile, was all that mattered. 1 hour to change the galaxy. Chapter 15. Kyther Surge. The synchronization began with a thunderous roar that echoed through the void of space. 3 stargates across the sector, dormant for eons, synchronized perfectly, their event horizons flaring to life in a blinding display of energy. The cosmic machinery hummed with an ancient rhythm, resonating with a power that seemed to shake the very fabric of reality. Mira's counter-resonance suite, nestled within the heart of the vessel, the silver veil, broadcast its interference pattern across the subspace network. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Every kytheric relay in range received the disruption like a shockwave, their crystalline structures shivering under the onslaught. The Kyther network, a once seamless tapestry of communication, began to unravel. Relays went dark across the sector, one by one, their lights flickering out like dying stars. Planets that had hummed with the ceaseless whispers of alien intelligence fell silent, plunging into a void of static. The XHOR, ever-present and insidious, were momentarily disoriented as their command structures faltered. But the Overmind was not so easily defeated. It recognized the attack almost immediately, its vast consciousness reacting with a ferocity born of eons of control. A cascade of contradictory commands surged through the kytheric network, a torrent designed to overload Mira's counter-resonance system. The suite's readings spiked dangerously high, alarms blaring as circuits overheated, and components began to fail. Mira's fingers danced over her controls, trying desperately to reroute power and stabilize the systems. Her eyes were wide with a mix of terror and exhilaration as she fought against the overwhelming cascade. Sweat beaded on her forehead and her breath came in ragged gasps. "Jana," she called out, her voice tight with urgency, "it's too much. The cascade it's tearing everything apart." Through the Queen Link, Jana felt the XHOR hive mind beginning to fragment. The psychic echoes of millions of insects screamed in confusion and pain as their collective consciousness splintered under the assault. It was like standing at the edge of an abyss, feeling the ground crumble beneath her feet. Then, amidst the chaos, a spark of inspiration ignited within Jana's mind. She reached through the queen link, not to the fragmented hive, but to the tamed XHOR queen she had imprinted with on the cold moon of Elysium. The queen's pheromone signature was still deeply entwined with her consciousness, a bond forged in desperation and trust. Jana's voice cut through the turmoil, steady and clear despite the storm around them. Mira, we need to link the tamed queen directly to the counter-resonance system. Mira's hands froze over the controls as she stared at Jana in disbelief. What? Jana, that's insane. You're talking about linking a human mind to alien technology during a cascade attack. Jana met Mira's gaze with unyielding determination. I know it sounds crazy, but think about it. The Queen's neural damping could absorb the overload. It's our only chance. Mira hesitated, her scientific mind rebelling against such a wild proposition. Yet she trusted Jana implicitly, a trust born of shared trials and victories. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. All right, she said, turning back to her console. But if this goes wrong, we're both going down with the ship. Jana nodded grimly and closed her eyes, focusing on the Queen Link. The connection was instantaneous, a flood of alien sensations washing over her. Through the link, Jana felt the tamed Queen's consciousness, vast, ancient, and deeply aware. There was no resistance, only a quiet acceptance and a willingness to act. The Queen's presence surged into Mira's counter-resonance suite, an avalanche of alien neural patterns intermingling with the human technology. The system groaned under the strain, but instead of failing, it began to stabilize. The cascade's overwhelming power was channeled through the Queen's consciousness, absorbed like water into a sponge. Mira watched in awe as her screens flickered back to life, the chaotic readings smoothing out into manageable patterns. It's working, she whispered, hardly daring to believe it. The cascade is being absorbed. Jana felt the synchronization hold, steadfast and unyielding against the Overmind's assault. The tamed Queen's neural damping acted as a buffer, allowing Mira's system to function without being overwhelmed. It was a delicate balance, but for now, it held. As the crisis stabilized, Jana remained connected to the Queen through the Queen Link. Her own consciousness expanded, intertwining with the alien entities in a way she had never experienced before. The tamed Queen's mind was an ocean of memories and instincts, ancient, predatory, yet somehow harmonious with her own human thoughts. For a moment, they were one, a duality of flesh and alien neural pathways. Jana saw through the Queen's eyes, the vast expanse of space, the dance of stars, and the silent, ceaseless communication of the Kytheric network. It was beautiful and terrifying, the beauty of cosmic unity and the terror of losing oneself in an endless void. The counter-resonance suite hummed with renewed vigor, its signals propagating galaxy-wide. Every Kytheric relay within range was disrupted, their crystalline structures vibrating wildly as they tried to synchronize with the alien-human fusion. The XHOR were cut off from Kytheric command, isolated and vulnerable for the first time in millennia. Mira's fingers flew over her controls, fine-tuning the system to maximize its reach. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of triumph and exhaustion. It's done, she said softly, leaning back in her chair. The XHOR are cut off. Jana opened her eyes, breaking the connection with the tamed Queen but retaining a lingering sense of her presence. She felt drained yet exhilarated, as if she had touched the very essence of creation and survived. But Mira's triumph was short-lived. The strain of maintaining the counter-resonance suite through the cascade had taken its toll. Her body betrayed her suddenly, and she slumped forward, collapsing over the console with a soft gasp. Jana reacted instantly, leaping from her seat to catch Mira before she hit the ground. She lowered her gently to the deck, checking for a pulse and breathing. Relief washed over her as she felt Mira's heart beat steadily, if weakly. "Mira," Jana murmured, smoothing back a strand of hair from her friend's forehead. "You did it." Jana looked up at Tarek and Kyther, who had been silent witnesses to the turmoil. Their expressions were grave but hopeful. The tamed Queen remained connected through the Queen Link, a comforting presence amidst the chaos. Get her to medical, Jana ordered softly, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions within her. We need to keep this going. The XHOR won't stay down for long. As Tarek and Kyther carefully lifted Mira's limp form, Jana took one last look at the counter-resonance suite. It hummed with a steady rhythm, propagating its disruption across the stars. She felt a pang of pride and gratitude. The tamed queen's consciousness still resonated within her mind, a silent ally in their ongoing battle against the Overmind. Jana turned to leave the bridge, her steps heavy but determined. The road ahead was fraught with uncertainty and danger, but for now they had won a crucial victory. The XHOR were cut off, and hope, tenuous yet unyielding, bloomed in Jana's heart. She carried with her the memory of that fleeting moment when she and the tamed queen had been one, a testament to the power of unity and trust against the vast, indifferent cosmos. Chapter 16. Cascade of ruin. The tactical displays on Captain Jana Rieck's bridge sprawled like a nightmarish tapestry, a constellation of chaos and destruction. Holographic maps flickered to life, painting the sector with swirling vortexes of red and black. The telltale signs of XHOR swarms converging on kytheric relay stations. The alien structures, once symbols of Kyther dominance, now stood as beacons of impending doom. Jana watched, her breath catching in her throat as the beauty and terror of it unfolded before her eyes. The XHOR moved with a fluidity that belied their insectoid nature, waves of dark forms surging against the gleaming towers. Each relay station was a geometric marvel, designed to withstand the relentless assaults of their own creations. But today, those defenses crumbled under the relentless onslaught. The swarms tore into the structures with a precision that sent shivers down Jana's spine. It was efficient, precise, and utterly alien. The tamed queen in her mind stirred, a whisper of satisfaction echoing through their shared consciousness. Jana felt it like a warm current, a sense of vindication. The XHOR were finally fighting their true enemy, the Kyther who had enslaved them for eons. She could almost taste the queen's primal joy as she watched her sisters wreak havoc on those who had once controlled them. Mira, Jana called out, her voice steady despite the storm raging within her. What's your assessment? Mira, standing at a console nearby, didn't take her eyes off the screens. Her fingers danced over the controls as she processed data streams. The Kyther are in full panic mode. Their network is collapsing faster than we anticipated. Every relay station in this sector and beyond is under attack. Jana nodded grimly. The tactical displays updated in real time, showing multiple relays exploding in cascades of light and energy. Each detonation sent shockwaves rippling through the void, a visual symphony of destruction that was both mesmerizing and horrifying. They're self-destructing their own installations, Mira continued, trying to take as many XHOR with them as they can. Jana's gaze flicked back to the displays, her eyes widening as she grasped the implications. The Kyther weren't going down without a fight. They were turning their network into a deadly trap. She barked orders to her bridge crew, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos. Commander Tarek, maintain maximum distance from any collapsing relays. Ensure all Alliance ships do the same. Tarek's deep voice came over the comms, calm and steady. Understood, Captain. Alerting fleet commanders now. Across the sector, Alliance ships pivoted and maneuvered, creating a safe perimeter around the detonating structures. Jana watched as kytheric installations blew apart, sending fiery plumes into space. The XHOR swarms, despite their ferocity, were no match for the sheer destructive power unleashed by the self-destruct sequences. But it wasn't enough. The Kyther's desperate gambit was taking a toll on both sides. For every relay destroyed, thousands of XHOR units perished in the blasts. Jana's heart pounded as she stared at the carnage, feeling the tamed queen's grief like a physical ache. Her wild sisters were dying, sacrificed in this final, futile stand by their former masters. Captain, Mira interrupted her thoughts, the Kyther are broadcasting a new directive. It's chaotic. Jana turned to her, eyebrows raised. What do you mean? Mira's expression was grave. They're calling for reinforcements from other sectors, and there's something else, a message meant for the XHOR queens. They're trying to regain control. A cold knot formed in Jana's stomach. She knew the Kyther well enough to understand that their desperation made them dangerous. If they managed to reestablish even a semblance of command over the hive mind, the battle could turn in an instant. "Can we intercept?" Jana asked, her mind racing. Mira shook her head. "Their encryption is too advanced. We can't break it fast enough." Jana clenched her fists, feeling helplessness gnawing at her resolve. She needed to act to end this before the Kyther's last-ditch efforts wiped out too many XHOR, or worse, regained control of them. "Open a channel to all fleet commanders," she ordered. "I need tactical updates and status reports from every ship." The bridge hummed with activity as officers relayed commands and received data feeds. Jana listened intently, her mind piecing together the fragmented picture of their situation. The Alliance fleet was holding position, but taking casualties. Small skirmishes erupting where XHOR swarms broke away from their primary targets to engage Alliance ships. Jana's gaze drifted back to the displays, tracking the relentless assaults on the Kytheric relays. The self-destruct cascades continued unabated, a chain reaction of devastation that showed no sign of stopping. Each explosion was a grim testament to the Kyther's resolve, desperate and brutal. But Jana also saw something else amidst the chaos. Pockets where XHOR units hesitated before plunging into suicidal attacks on relay stations. Those brief moments of indecision gave her an idea, fragile but potentially transformative. She turned to Mira, who seemed to sense her thoughts. "Mira, can we amplify those moments of hesitation? If we can disrupt the Queen's commands even slightly," Jana trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Mira's eyes narrowed as she considered the possibility. "It's risky, but worth exploring. We might be able to introduce a form of Kytheric noise into their communication channels, something to confuse and delay their directives." Jana nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "Do it. Every second counts." The bridge crew sprang into action, redirecting resources toward Mira's makeshift plan. Jana watched as data streams flowed from console to console, her heart pounding with anticipation. The tactical displays flickered with new inputs, patterns of Kytheric noise designed to sow confusion within the XHOR ranks. "Captain," Tarek's voice crackled over the comms again, "we have reports of XHOR swarms breaking off attacks on relay stations. Some are turning their focus back onto Kyther ships." A grim smile tugged at Jana's lips. It was working. The noise was creating enough disruption to give them a fighting chance. She turned her attention back to the displays, watching as pockets of XHOR units began to reassess their targets. But even as she celebrated this small victory, she couldn't shake the weight of the impending defeat. The Kyther were dying, but they were taking too many XHOR with them. Jana felt the tamed Queen's grief like a physical wound, a deep, aching loss that gnawed at her resolve. The tactical displays updated once more, showing new Kytheric reinforcements entering the fray from adjacent sectors. Jana braced herself for another wave of destruction, but saw something unexpected. Instead of reinforcing relay stations, these ships were targeting XHOR Queens directly. A chill ran down Jana's spine. The Kyther had realized their mistake. The true threat wasn't the swarms, but the Queens leading them. If they could decapitate the XHOR command structure, Jana made her decision in an instant. "Tarek, redirect all available firepower to defend the XHOR Queens. Priority targets are Kytheric ships moving into assassinative positions." Tarek acknowledged without hesitation, relaying new orders across the fleet. Jana's heart raced as she watched Alliance vessels pivot, their weapons systems locking onto incoming Kyther threats. The bridge erupted in a flurry of activity, officers barking orders, data streaming across consoles, and hollow displays pulsing with updates. Jana stood at the center, her gaze fixed on the unfolding battle, feeling both exhilaration and dread. The next few minutes were a blur of explosions, maneuvering ships, and tactical adjustments. Alliance firepower tore through Kyther vessels attempting to eliminate XHOR Queens, while elsewhere relay stations continued to detonate under XHOR assaults. Then came a moment of clarity, a lull in the chaos where Jana could assess their progress. The Kytheric reinforcements had been significantly weakened but not eliminated. Some still posed threats to key targets. And the Kyther were adapting, modifying their strategies mid-battle, turning their ships into mobile command centers rather than static relay stations. Jana's breath caught as she realized the stark truth. This wasn't going away anytime soon. The Kyther might be on the brink of defeat, but they weren't going down without a fight. She needed to end it, now, before desperation turned their last stand into annihilation for both sides. She stepped closer to Mira's console, her voice low but firm. "We need a final push, something decisive." Mira looked up from her work, exhaustion etched on her face. "I might have an idea," she said slowly, "but it's risky." "Extremely so." Jana met her gaze steadily. "Tell me, if we can disrupt the Kytheric network entirely, shut down their communication channels permanently, the Queens will lose all guidance from their former masters." Mira paused, weighing her words carefully. "We could use a concentrated burst of Kytheric noise directed at every relay station simultaneously. It would overload their systems, effectively severing the Kyther's control." Jana considered this plan, bold and dangerous but potentially game-changing. She took a deep breath before nodding resolutely. "We do it," she said, turning back to face her bridge crew. "All hands prepare for full-spectrum Kytheric disruption. Target all remaining relay stations." The bridge responded with renewed vigor. Officers sprang into action, their movements synchronized and purposeful. Jana watched as tactical displays shifted, new strategies unfolding in real time. "Readying burst sequence," Mira confirmed after a tense moment of preparation. "On your mark, Captain." Jana's fingers tightened around the railing before her, feeling the weight of the decision. She took one final look at the tactical displays, the swirling chaos of XHOR and Kyther forces locked in mortal combat. "Execute," she ordered calmly. The bridge hummed with anticipation as Mira activated the burst sequence. A wave of Kytheric noise swept across the sector, invisible but devastating. Relay stations flickered under the assault, their defensive screens failing almost instantly. The disruption was total, a cascade of chaos that left no room for command or countermeasure. Across the void, Kytheric relays began to crumble, some exploding in spectacular bursts of light, others simply disintegrating into space debris. Jana watched as the network collapsed, feeling a mixture of relief and grim satisfaction. But amidst the victory, there was sorrow. The tamed queen's grief resonated through her, raw and profound, a shared mourning for lost sisters torn away by a battle not their own. Jana stood tall on the bridge, surrounded by officers working tirelessly to secure their hard-won advantage. She knew this wasn't over, far from it. But today marked a turning point. Today they had dealt a crippling blow to an enemy thought invincible. And as she gazed out at the shattered remnants of Kytheric dominance, Jana Rieck felt a quiet determination rise within her. This was only the beginning. The real war, against desperation and loss, was yet to come. Chapter 17. Echoes of defiance. The void of space, once an unyielding expanse of darkness and silence, erupted into a symphony of destruction. The Federation fleet, a vast armada of starships bristling with weaponry, cut through the cosmos like a scythe through wheat. Captain Jana Rieck watched from her command deck on the Infinity, her eyes scanning holographic displays that mapped out the sector in real time. Each coordinate, a Kytheric nest, pulsed menacingly before turning into a pinpoint of brilliance as antimatter missiles detonated with surgical precision. "All units, confirm targets engaged," Jana's voice echoed through the comms channel, steady and commanding. "Bravo Squadron reassigned to Sector Gamma-7. Alpha and Charlie Squadrons, hold position and prepare for secondary strikes." The Federation commanders responded in unison, their voices a chorus of discipline and efficiency. Tarek, now a seasoned admiral, coordinated the left flank with the grace of a conductor leading an orchestra. Mira, her tactical genius honed by years of conflict, managed the right flank with ruthless precision. "Nest Alpha-3 eliminated," reported a voice from one of the destroyers. "Moving to secondary targets?" "Affirmative," Jana acknowledged, her gaze never leaving the tactical display. "Delta Squadron, your markers are active. Proceed to Nest Beta-12 and engage." The Kytheric fleet, what remained of it after years of relentless warfare, tried to rally. But their formations were fractured, their communications disjointed. Without the relay network that once linked them across galaxies, they were blind and deaf, stumbling through space like headless giants. "Captain," Mira's voice cut through the static. Kyther remnants at Sector Delta-9 are attempting to regroup. Should we divert resources? Jana weighed her options, fingers hovering over a holographic console. Negative, Mira. Maintain course. The nests are priority targets. On the main view screen, a Kytheric battleship loomed into view, its organic hull glistening like a monstrous coral reef. It fired a volley of energy bolts, but the Federation fleet weaved and dodged, their ships moving with practiced agility. "Infinity, incoming!" yelled an ensign from the tactical station. Jana's reflexes were instantaneous. Evasive maneuvers, return fire at will. The Infinity shuddered as it banked sharply, antimatter cannons blasting a stream of destruction towards the Kytheric vessel. The battleship's shields flickered and died under the onslaught before it exploded in a cataclysmic burst of light. Jana's heart pounded, but her expression remained stoic. She couldn't afford to show weakness now, not when every commander looked to her for guidance. The assault continued relentlessly. Each nest fell like dominoes, their destruction echoing through the sector with thunderous finality. The Kytheric strongholds crumbled one by one, their once impenetrable defenses crumbling under the coordinated barrage of antimatter missiles and photon torpedoes. On the bridge of the Infinity, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of tension and exhilaration. Officers shouted coordinates, relayed status reports, and acknowledged orders with military precision. Jana's gaze swept over them all, her presence commanding yet reassuring. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the comms system. "Captain," Mira's voice was urgent but controlled, "we're detecting a wideband transmission from the last Kytheric nest." Jana tensed. "Route it to my console, full encryption scan." The bridge fell silent as a voice, cold and resonant, filled the air. "The Overmind, greetings, Captain Jana Rieck. You have fought well." Jana's grip tightened on her command chair. She didn't respond immediately, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. "Your victory today is but a fleeting moment," the voice continued. "The Kyther will retreat to the galactic rim, regroup our forces, and return stronger than ever." "Your words are empty," Jana finally replied, her voice measured. "Your nests fall, your fleet scatters. This war may not be over, but today you lose." "Indeed," the Overmind conceded, a hint of mockery in its tone. "But consider this. When we return, it will not be to wage war on your terms. We will adapt, evolve, and humanity's defenses will crumble like the sandcastles they are." Jana leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "When you return, we'll be ready. Humanity has faced extinction before and prevailed. The Kyther threat is over, for now." The bridge crew held their breath as Jana delivered her final words. "Very well," the Overmind said, its voice fading like a distant echo. "Until our paths cross again, Captain." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving behind an eerie silence. Jana glanced at Mira, who nodded grimly in acknowledgement. "All units," Jana's voice was steady and firm. "Final target, Nest Omega-13, full assault." The fleet surged forward with renewed vigor. Antimatter missiles streaked through space, converging on the last Kytheric stronghold. The nest, a colossal structure of writhing organic matter and pulsating energy, trembled under the relentless assault. "Infinity's main cannons locked," reported Tarek from his station. Jana nodded. "Fire!" The Infinity shuddered as its primary weapons unleashed a torrent of destruction. The nest convulsed, its surface tearing apart in a cascading explosion that engulfed the entire structure. On the tactical display, Nest Omega-13 blinked out of existence. The last stronghold was destroyed. "All nests eliminated," announced an officer from the sensor station. "The sector is clear." Jana allowed herself a moment to absorb the gravity of the words. The war was over, for now. She stood up slowly, her body aching with exhaustion and the weight of command. "I'll be in my quarters," she said softly to Mira before leaving the bridge. Her cabin felt small and intimate compared to the vast expanse of the Infinity. Jana sat on the edge of her bed, staring at a holographic image of Vesk. His smile was warm, his eyes kind. "We did it," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We won." But even as she spoke the words, she knew this wasn't the end. The Kyther would return, more formidable and cunning than before. And when they did, humanity had to be ready. She let out a long sigh, allowing herself to feel the exhaustion that had gnawed at her for years. Her body ached, her mind weary from constant vigilance. But beneath it all, there was a quiet satisfaction. She had survived this battle, and so had humanity. Jana closed her eyes, remembering the countless lives lost, the sacrifices made. The cost was enormous, but they had won. For now. "I promise," she said to Vesk's memory, "we'll be ready when they return." Her voice trailed off as sleep claimed her, a temporary respite from the weight of command and the knowledge that another storm was brewing on the horizon. But for tonight, Captain Jana Rieck allowed herself the luxury of rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but today they had won. In the quiet of her cabin, the Infinity continued its journey through the stars, a beacon of hope amidst the void, ready to face whatever the future held. Chapter 18. Reckoning Captain Jana Rieck stood in the dimly lit communications bay of the Alliance cruiser Agamemnon, her eyes scanning the holographic interface before her. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems and the occasional beep of data streams being processed. She had spent hours meticulously preparing this broadcast, ensuring every piece of evidence was in order, every detail cross-verified with Alliance intelligence. Jana wore a simple black uniform, no insignia or decorations, a choice meant to underscore the gravity of what she was about to reveal rather than her rank. Her hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her expression was one of calm resolve. Beside her, Tarek stood ready, his fingers dancing over the controls, preparing to initiate the broadcast. "We're live in 5 minutes," Tarek announced, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of nervous energy. Jana nodded, taking a deep breath. She wasn't speaking for herself. She was speaking for every citizen whose life had been altered or ended by Meridian's machinations. Her voice would carry the weight of their collective anger and pain. 3 minutes, Tarek said, his eyes flicking to the timer on the control panel. Jana turned her attention back to the holographic display. The archive files glowed in midair, each one a testament to Meridian's crimes. Secret contracts, surveillance logs, breeding program records. She had organized them chronologically, building a narrative that would be impossible to refute. 2 minutes. The door to the communications bay slid open, and Mira entered, her steps echoing softly on the metallic floor. She carried a small device which she handed to Jana. "This will ensure the broadcast is encrypted and untraceable," Mira explained quietly. Jana nodded, grateful for Mira's foresight. Trust in technology was hard-won these days, but Mira had proven herself reliable time and again. 1 minute. Tarek looked up from his controls, meeting Jana's gaze. "You ready?" She offered him a small, tight-lipped smile. "As I'll ever be." The countdown ticked down to 0. Tarek hit the transmit button, and the communications bay filled with the soft glow of the live feed. Jana's image flickered onto screens across the galaxy, her expression unyielding. "Citizens of the Federation," she began, her voice clear and steady. "Today I stand before you not as a captain or an Alliance officer, but as someone who has seen the dark underbelly of our society. For too long, powerful corporations have operated in the shadows, manipulating our lives for profit and power." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Meridian Industries, along with 3 other conglomerates, Vestige Technologies, Stellar Nexus, and Orion Systems, have secretly licensed Kytheric technology. They've installed backdoors in our civilian infrastructure, compromising our privacy and safety. They've participated in XHOR breeding programs, using living beings as pawns in their twisted games. And they plan to use the final swarm attack to seize control of our government. Jana's voice didn't waver. She presented each piece of evidence with surgical precision, her tone devoid of emotion but laced with an unspoken fury. "Here is the Meridian Contract Archive," she said, bringing up a holographic display of the documents. "Each file contains irrefutable proof of their crimes. Surveillance logs detailing civilian movements, breeding program records that read like a horror novel, and correspondence between corporate leaders plotting to overthrow our democratically elected government." She paused again, letting the audience absorb the gravity of her words. "The evidence is damning. It exposes a web of deceit and corruption so vast it touches every corner of the Federation. But this is not about pointing fingers or assigning blame. This is about accountability, about holding those responsible to account for their actions." Jana's eyes narrowed as she continued. Darius Vance, CEO of Meridian Industries, has been arrested by Federation security. His detention is a small step towards justice, but it is just the beginning. The corporate media empire will try to spin this evidence to twist the narrative in their favor, but we must not be fooled. We must demand transparency and accountability from our leaders. She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to a more intimate tone. We have a choice before us. We can continue down this path of secrecy and manipulation, or we can forge a new way, one built on trust, honesty, and the belief that every citizen deserves to live in a society free from corporate tyranny. Jana's broadcast concluded with a final call to action. Join me in demanding change, demand accountability, demand justice. As she finished, Tarek cut the feed. The communications bay fell silent for a moment before Mira spoke. That was powerful, she said softly. Jana nodded, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion wash over her. She turned to Tarek. Status! Tarek's fingers flew over the controls as he checked the broadcast logs. The feed went out without issues. It's being picked up by every major news outlet across the galaxy, Mira added, and the response is immediate. Federation citizens are outraged. Protests are already forming in major cities. Jana listened to the reports coming in from various sectors of the galaxy. The corporate political infrastructure was crumbling under the weight of her revelations. 4 cabinet ministers had resigned amid allegations of corruption and complicity with Meridian. 2 corporations were dissolved by emergency decree, their assets frozen pending further investigation. The Federation Council convened an emergency session to address the crisis. Councillor Yeva stepped forward as a voice of reason amidst the chaos, calling for calm and measured responses. She spoke of the need for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, insisting on accountability rather than vengeance. Jana watched from the sidelines as Yeva navigated the tumultuous political landscape. The counselor had become an unexpected ally, her diplomatic skills instrumental in guiding Jana through the labyrinth of Federation politics. The news feeds were a whirlwind of reactions: shock, outrage, calls for justice. Citizens took to the streets, demanding answers and accountability from their elected officials. Jana watched it all unfold with a sense of both satisfaction and disquiet. She hadn't sought this level of upheaval, she just wanted to protect people. Yet here they were, at the precipice of change. The corporate media empire struggled to regain control of the narrative, but every attempt was met with derision from an informed public. Jana's broadcast had armed citizens with knowledge, and once armed, they refused to be disarmed. As the day wore on, Jana found herself in her quarters, flipping through news feeds from various sectors. Citizens were rallying, their voices echoing through streets and digital forums alike. She saw faces she recognized, families of soldiers lost in the Kytheric swarms, activists who had long advocated for transparency. She felt a deep sense of pride mixed with exhaustion. This wasn't what she had set out to do. She was a soldier, not a revolutionary. But sometimes, the path to protecting people led through uncharted territories. Her communicator beeped softly, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced at the display and saw an incoming message. The sender was unexpected. Kyther, still aboard the Agamemnon. Jana hesitated before accepting the call. The alien's face materialized on the screen, his eyes filled with an emotion she couldn't quite decipher. "Captain Rieck," he said, his voice echoing slightly. "I have been monitoring your broadcast and its aftermath. I must commend you. You have accomplished something extraordinary." Jana raised an eyebrow. "Extraordinary. Kyther, I exposed a corporate conspiracy. That's hardly groundbreaking for someone like you." Kyther tilted his head slightly, a gesture that seemed almost human in its familiarity. "You misunderstand," he said. "I am speaking not just of the corporate conspiracy, but of something far deeper. You have exposed a species that has been manipulating civilizations for millennia. The kytheric technology you revealed is ancient, older than your galaxy. Your actions today resonate beyond this moment." Jana felt a shiver run down her spine. She had always known there was more to the XHOR and their technology than met the eye, but hearing it confirmed sent a chill through her. "You didn't just win a war," Kyther continued. You took the first step in breaking the chains that bind your species. I hope you understand the significance of what you've done." Jana nodded slowly, processing his words. The weight of her actions felt heavier now, but also more purposeful. Kythor's expression softened. "I offer my aid if you need it. This journey is only beginning." The call ended, leaving Jana in silence. She stared at the blank screen for a long moment before turning back to the news feeds. The galaxy was ablaze with change, and she was both a catalyst and an observer. She didn't set out to be a revolutionary, but sometimes the path to protecting people led through uncharted territories, and Jana Rieck had navigated that path with unwavering resolve. As she watched the citizens of the Federation stand up for themselves, she felt a profound sense of pride. A warrior's pride in knowing she had fought for something worth fighting for. Exhaustion gnawed at her, but it was tempered by a quiet satisfaction. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but Jana Rieck was ready to face whatever came next. For now, she allowed herself a moment of rest, watching the galaxy transform before her eyes. Chapter 19. Kyther Surrender the again hummed with an unusual tension as the Kytheric delegation arrived. The massive starship, once a fortress of resistance against the relentless Kyther advance, now played host to an unprecedented encounter. Jana Rieck stood in the formal chamber, her uniform crisp and adorned with insignia that spoke of battles won and lost. The walls, usually sterile and utilitarian, were draped with holographic banners bearing the symbols of the Alliance, the stars and nebulae representing unity against the cosmic void. The doors slid open, revealing a delegation of Kyther. They moved with an eerie grace, their metallic forms glinting under the chamber's harsh lights. Jana had faced these beings countless times in simulation and battle, but seeing them here in person sent a shiver down her spine. Their posture was different from what she remembered, a shift from aggressive dominance to something more measured, calculated. Tovar, the leader of the delegation, stepped forward. His body was sleek and angular, with no discernible features beyond the glowing orbs that served as his eyes. The cold precision in his movements mirrored Kythor's mannerisms, but lacked the subtle hesitation Jana had come to recognize in her former prisoner. "Captain Jana Rieck," Tovar began, his voice a mechanical hum translated into Federation tongue through an interlaced device. "I am Tovar, strategist of the Kyther High Council. We have come to offer terms for a ceasefire." Jana met his gaze steadily, her expression neutral. "I acknowledge your presence, Tovar. The Federation is ready to listen." Tovar's orbs pulsed softly, a sign Jana had learned indicated deep processing. The Kyther acknowledged the significant resistance of the Alliance and the strategic errors that have led us here. "We offer a formal ceasefire. In exchange for non-interference from your forces beyond the galactic rim, we will withdraw all relays from Federation space, halt XHOR manipulation, and establish a neutral zone." Jana absorbed the words, her mind racing through the implications. A temporary peace. It was reasonable on the surface, but the underlying danger was palpable. The Kyther were not defeated, they were regrouping. "What guarantees do you offer that this ceasefire will hold?" Jana asked, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts. Tovar's orbs flickered. "Guarantees are not our currency, Captain. We offer a strategic withdrawal and a period of non-aggression. The Kyther understand the need for recovery on both sides." Jana nodded slowly, her hands clasped behind her back. She knew the border sectors needed this respite. The Federation could ill afford to chase the Kyther to the edges of known space without risking collapse from overextension. "The Alliance Council will debate your proposal," she said finally. "But I assure you, we are not naive about the temporary nature of this ceasefire." Tovar inclined his metallic form in what Jana interpreted as a nod. "We expect no less from a formidable opponent." The Kytheric delegation was escorted to a secure holding area while Jana prepared for the council meeting. The chamber buzzed with anticipation as representatives from various Alliance worlds gathered around the holographic table. Voices echoed through the chamber, some advocating for immediate acceptance of the ceasefire, others wary and skeptical. "We cannot afford to let this opportunity slip," Admiral Vesper argued, his face stern but hopeful. "Our sectors are depleted. We need time to rebuild." Counselor Lyra countered with a shake of her head. "This is a ruse. The Kyther will use this truce to strengthen their forces and strike again when we least expect it. Jana listened intently, her gaze sweeping over the faces of those she had fought alongside for years. She understood their fears and doubts. She shared them. "I recommend we accept the ceasefire," Jana said, her voice cutting through the chatter. "But not without conditions. The Kyther will withdraw to a designated neutral zone. We will establish monitoring stations at key points along the border to ensure compliance." A murmur of agreement rippled through the council, but Lyra's frown deepened. "And if they breach this truce?" Jana met her gaze steadily. "Then we prepare for war, but we do so from a position of strength, not desperation." The debate raged on for hours, voices clashing and merging in a symphony of caution and hope. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the council reached a decision. The ceasefire would be accepted, but with Jana's conditions. The signing ceremony was held in the same formal chamber where Jana had first met Tovar. Holographic seals floated above the table, waiting to be activated by both parties. Jana stood at the head of the Federation delegation, her posture rigid and unyielding. Across from her, Tovar's metallic form mirrored hers. "With this agreement," Jana began, "the Federation acknowledges the Kyther withdrawal from our space and ceases hostilities. In return, we agree to a period of non-interference beyond the galactic rim." Tovar's orbs pulsed in acknowledgement. "The Kyther accept these terms. May the neutral zone serve as a bridge between our peoples until future encounters." Their hands, one organic, one mechanical, hovered over the holographic seals. With a simultaneous motion, they activated the agreements, and the chamber hummed softly as the documents were recorded in the Alliance's archives. The kytheric delegation departed with the same measured grace they had arrived with. Jana watched them go, her thoughts a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. This wasn't permanent. She knew it as surely as she knew her own name. But for now, it was enough. Later that evening, Jana found herself in the secure holding area where Kyther resided. The alien who had once been her prisoner and then her ally stood quietly, his metallic form glinting under the dim lights. Jana approached him cautiously, her steps echoing softly on the polished floor. "Kyther," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "You listened to their message." He turned to face her, his orbs pulsating with a complexity of emotions she had come to recognize. "I did. They will return, Jana. The Kyther do not surrender. They adapt and regroup." Jana nodded, her expression somber. "I know, but we have time now, time to prepare." Kyther's form shifted slightly, as if contemplating his next words. "They are my people, but I am here with you. The choices I've made, they lead me down a different path." Jana met his gaze, a quiet understanding passing between them. They had shared battles and secrets, trust forged in the crucible of war. Their bond transcended species and language. "You will help me prepare?" she asked softly. Kyther's orbs pulsed brightly. "Yes. I will stand with you against my own kind if it means protecting what we have built together." Jana felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of camaraderie that went beyond words. She extended her hand, palm up, and Kyther mirrored the gesture with his metallic appendage. "I accept your offer, Kyther," she said, her voice steady and sure. "Together we will face whatever comes next." As they stood there, Jana and Kyther, two beings from different worlds, bound by circumstance and choice, they knew that their journey was far from over. But in that moment, amidst the echoes of a temporary peace, they found solace in each other's presence. They understood each other in a way no two species ever had, and it was enough to face the uncertain future ahead. Chapter 20. Echoes of Light, the Proxima Gate. A colossal structure of shimmering metal and ancient alien technology loomed against the backdrop of starlit darkness like a monument to human endurance. For centuries, it had been a symbol of division, a barrier separating the Federation's core worlds from the border sectors, a chasm of inequality and mistrust. Today, however, the gate was adorned with luminescent banners in every hue imaginable, fluttering gently against the void, signifying unity rather than separation. Delegates arrived in a steady stream, their ships docking at the sprawling space station orbiting nearby. Representatives from every border sector, from the icy moons of Zephyrian to the volcanic plains of Pyroclast, mixed with Federation dignitaries on the platform surrounding the gate. The atmosphere buzzed with a palpable mix of anticipation and caution, as old wounds were still raw and new alliances fragile. Captain Jana Rieck watched from the bridge of the Again, her flagship cruiser named for the relentless pursuit of justice that had driven her through countless battles. She preferred the hum of the ship's engines to the polite applause and carefully rehearsed smiles of the ceremony below. The stage was set with ornate podiums and holographic backdrops, but Jana knew the real work wasn't in speeches or handshakes. It was in the quiet moments between, the compromises forged in shadows, and the unwavering resolve to see this through. Counselor Yeva took her place at the center of the stage, a figure of composure and authority. Her voice, amplified by acoustic enhancers, carried clearly across the vast expanse, both physically and via every communication channel in the system. "Today marks a turning point," she began, her tone measured yet impassioned. "A new chapter in our collective history. For 2 centuries, we have stood divided, separated by walls both literal and metaphorical, but no more." Jana leaned back in her command chair, eyes fixed on the holodisplay showing Yeva's address. The counselor's words were eloquent, weaving a narrative of shared struggle and mutual triumph. She spoke of the sacrifices made, the lives lost, and the indomitable spirit that had carried them through wars against the XHOR and the Kyther. Her voice rose and fell like the tide, each phrase carefully crafted to evoke both grief and hope. "Federation delegates," Yeva continued, her gaze sweeping over the assembled dignitaries. "Many of you stood on the precipice of supporting measures that would have deepened our divides. But today you stand before us with apologies and open hands. For this, we are grateful." Jana's expression remained stoic, but internally she felt a twist of discomfort. Apologies were easy when uttered from a podium. True change required action. Yet she couldn't deny the sincerity in Yeva's words or the genuine efforts made by those now standing alongside the border sectors. "The integration process has not been easy," Yeva admitted, her voice softening with empathy. "There have been political tensions, old grudges, and difficult conversations. But we have persevered because we know that unity is not an option, it is a necessity." As Yeva spoke, Jana's thoughts wandered to the countless battles she'd fought, the friends lost, and the enemies faced. She remembered Vesk, her steadfast ally and confidant, whose laughter still echoed in her memories. And Thomas, her brother, who had sacrificed so much for this very moment. Their faces flickered across her mind like ghosts from a distant past. The ceremony reached its climax with Yeva's final words. "Today, we declare the border sectors no longer separate entities, but integral parts of our federation. Together, we forge ahead into a future where every voice is heard and every life is valued." A thunderous applause erupted from the platform, resonating through the void like distant thunder. Jana felt a lump form in her throat as she watched the scene unfold. This was what they had fought for: recognition, equality, and a chance at true peace. As the cheers subsided, a hush fell over the assembly. Suddenly, thousands of small lights began to appear around the Proxima Gate, forming an intricate ring that expanded outward like ripples on water. Each light represented a life lost in the wars, a silent testament to the cost of their struggles. Jana's breath caught in her chest as she beheld the memorial ring. It was breathtaking, a constellation of remembrance against the darkness of space. She thought of Vesk again, his grin wide and infectious. Of Thomas, his eyes filled with determination. Of countless others who had given everything for this day. The lights grew brighter, casting a soft glow over the gate and illuminating the faces of those below. Jana felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. This was more than just a ceremony, it was a promise. A vow to remember, to honor, and to build on the sacrifices made. From her vantage point on the bridge, Jana watched as the memorial ring completed its circle around the gate. Each light pulsed gently, creating a mesmerizing dance of illumination that seemed to pulse with life. It was beautiful, a beacon of hope amidst the stars. As the final light flickered into existence, completing the perfect circle, Jana allowed herself a moment of reflection. This is what they fought for, she thought. Not glory or accolades, but a chance for peace and unity. The war might be over, but the peace was fragile, delicate as glass. Yet it existed, a tangible reality born from blood and tears. Her communicator chirped softly, pulling her from her reverie. Tarek's voice filled the bridge, warm and familiar. "Jana," he said, his tone tinged with pride, "you did it." She smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. "We did it, Tarek," she corrected gently. "None of this would be possible without you." "Maybe," he conceded, a hint of amusement in his voice. "But today is your day. You're the one they'll remember standing up for what's right." Jana shook her head, even though he couldn't see it. "It wasn't just me. It was all of us, everyone who believed in a future beyond division and strife." Tarek paused briefly before responding. "True enough. But you were the spark that ignited the fire. Without you—" His voice trailed off, leaving the sentiment unspoken but understood. Jana felt a swell of emotion, gratitude mixed with humility. "We did this together," she reiterated softly. As their conversation ended, Jana turned her gaze back to the memorial ring. It gleamed like a halo around the Proxima Gate, a testament to human resilience and unity. Below, on the platform, representatives from both Federation and border sectors mingled freely, their laughter echoing through calm channels. The again hung in orbit, its sleek silhouette stark against the cosmic backdrop. Around it, the border sectors buzzed with renewed energy. Ships darting between worlds, construction drones swarming over ruined landscapes, and new colonies taking root on barren moons. Life was returning to places long thought lost to war. Jana leaned forward in her chair, hands resting lightly on the console before her. She took a deep breath, letting the sight of rebirth wash over her. The war might be over, but there was still much work to be done. Bridges needed mending, wounds healing, and futures shaping. Yet amidst the chaos and uncertainty, there was this moment, a beacon of hope shining brightly in the void. This is what matters, Jana thought, her gaze fixed on the memorial ring. This promise, this reminder, that even in darkness, light can prevail. And with that thought, she steeled herself for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that as long as they held onto this promise, they could face anything. Audio fades in with soft, calming music. Narrator, voiceover. And thus concludes the epic journey of Kyther Surrender, the thrilling finale of the XHOR Trilogy by Arthur F. Iceley. We hope you've been as enthralled and captivated by this audacious adventure as we were while bringing it to life. Pause for a moment, narrator, voiceover. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue creating more immersive stories like this one. Another brief pause. Narrator, voiceover. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey through the realms of Kyther. Your enthusiasm and feedback are invaluable, so feel free to share your thoughts and recommendations with fellow listeners. Music softens slightly. Narrator, voiceover. Until next time, may your adventures be as thrilling as those of our heroes in the XHOR Trilogy. Safe journeys. Music fades out completely. End of audiobook.